Motion carried. This time we will take approval of the minutes of October 9th, 2018 regular meeting. Motion to approve those minutes. Would like Commissioner Maria?
Second.
Mr. Chairman, concerning the minutes, there was a motion made 2 months ago to correct the minutes to reflect that the procedures had not been followed, I think, on one of the contracts. It was moved and it was seconded and it was approved by the commissioners. Normally with changes in minutes, we have a vetting process to go back, check the minutes and such. And we did so in this particular case with the clerk's office. And the minutes that were there originally were the correct minutes and the procedures had been followed. And so what I'd like to see is the commissioners go ahead and reconsider that issue and let the minutes stand as they were 2 months ago.
This application, the third item, the minutes of August 14th, those were revised. Are you thinking of?
Yes.
Those, okay. So what I'm talking about, what I'm bringing up right now is the minutes of October 9th. We're actually for approval. Then we also have the minutes of September 11th and the revised minutes of August 14th.
Okay.
Okay. So motion is made on the minutes to approve minutes of October 9th. Second, that motion carries. I need a motion to approve the minutes of September 11th, 2018 regular meeting. Moved by Commissioner Padilla.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Martinez. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, on the minutes that under the revised minutes of August 14th, 2018 regular meeting. At this time to approve those minutes. Moved by Commissioner Padilla.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Martinez. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Introduction of new county employees. No. At this time, we'll go into the public input forum. We have quite a busy day here. They all seem to be regarding most of the same topic, regarding water resolution. Individual wanting to speak or address the commission during public input item must sign in on the public input form prior to the commission approving the day's agenda. Recognized speakers are allowed to speak on items relevant to county business and responsibilities. In order to promote orderly efficient meeting accessible to everybody's time, county chairman and recognized individuals will speak. Recognized speakers will be limited to 3 minutes of public comment period. Recognized speakers shall be permitted to speak no more than one time. No rebuttals to the comments by others will be permitted. Comments, applause, or other interruptions from the audience will not be allowed. In order to promote orderly meetings, to occasionally feel safe and secure in their attendance, threatening the future comments that disrupt the meeting shall not be allowed. All speakers shall address the Board of County Commissioners, mention their name, and then speak on the issue from the podium. First speaker is Kristen Young.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for hearing our testimony today, and thank you for serving as our commission. A special thank you to the county manager for allowing our community rights resolution presentation to be heard today. I go by the name of Kristen Yount, and my nickname is Urbana. For the past 5 years, I have been studying the effects of incomplete water policy on communities in the U.S. and abroad. I currently attend Highlands, and I'm finishing my thesis on this important matter. I'm also learning how to speak to decision makers like you about the need for water policy that preserves human rights and community participation. What I'm doing now is using my expertise in this area to advise the Commission to incorporate water conservation language when making land use rules. Several issues with water policy that stand out to me are pollution, misdirection of supplies, and centralized management. Privatization is what happens when a company comes in and purchases the water in order to sell it back to the community, or whoever else will pay for it. And in that losing situation, it centralizes the management of water under an owner that is not the people. When privatization is not a foreseeable threat, you must know that the city of Las Vegas suffers from an economic downturn at some point. It might make the handling of our water supply desirable to our city to pass it off to somebody else because ratepayer monies can't pencil out the cost of managing infrastructure. And so just wish that there was something in the comprehensive plan that prevents the privatization of water. The city of Baltimore actually just made that rule. We need language in the county code to protect us. We are not asking for a ban on anything. We don't want limits on industry or agriculture. We're asking you to willfully acknowledge the importance of our watersheds in every single land use document that you produce moving forward. My experience is that there are two problems in policy that create issues. One is tragic omission in laws, and the other is direct sidestepping of good rules made by local governments. Omission and sidestepping. The language in this proposal, which will be read later in the meeting, is meant to be a guide in future rulemaking in this county to ensure that sidestepping and omission do not happen as frequently. The comprehensive plan makes a lot of efforts to ensure that the community rights are taken into account, but there's no specific language against privatization. Another scenario I think we should look at, or the Commission should look at, is if for some reason, when the Santa Fe watershed is exposed to lethal fires, where is the city of Santa Fe and the county of Santa Fe going to get their water? We need to look at that. Unless you commissioners see that there's a hierarchy of importance that puts San Miguel ahead of the needs of Santa Fe County or Bernalillo County, then maybe you don't need to. It's up to the county commissioners to make sure that we are able to defend our water rights on this level in San Miguel County. Many management agencies overrule us already. We have the federal government, Interstate Stream Commission, the state engineer's office. In my experience, only in New Mexico is there a mandated system of community-based water management in our state constitution. It's very important and special because that means we as New Mexicans have a foothold in court proceedings, allowing us to continue to fight to preserve our pristine waters. We are asking you to try whenever possible to continue the tradition of codifying our rights to water in our rules and policies moving forward. I beg of this commission to never ever miss an opportunity to strengthen the rights we have as property owners, residential users, and growers on our laws. Everyone knows that extractive industries have made large areas of our nation's water supplies toxic. We are painfully aware of how our groundwater levels ebb and flow with the years of inundation and drought in this region. We all know that our supply can be undermined just like that by Mother Nature. Let's not miss a chance to bolster and protect our precious gallinas, pecos, and other watersheds in San Miguel. If anyone wants to talk to me about my work, please do not hesitate to contact me. Bless you all, and thank you for giving me this chance to speak.
Thank you. We have the clock up and running now, but I have to be careful of the time. We have a long agenda today. We have over 30 items we would like to get done before midnight.
Is there a clock?
No, it could put up. I mean, it's a bureau item. Next speaker is Miguel Ángel.
Buenas tardes. I'm here to speak on to the resolution, the land water use resolution that all of you have probably read by now, that was submitted by Michael Coca. My name is Miguel Ángel, retired professor of the California University System. I taught Chicano Latin American Studies, political economy, with a focus on history and developmental studies. Over the last 5 years, as the director of Casa de Cultura, I have focused on the status of Hispano culture, grassroots economic policy, and the effects of oil and gas drilling in New Mexico. Upon retirement in 1996, and returning to my family home in Las Vegas, I began to meet with citizens from various parts of El Norte, and we came to the same realization that there was a serious cultural, economic, and environmental crisis that had emerged and was having a critical influence on the rural communities of northern New Mexico. When we got involved in the anti-fracking movement about 5 years ago, we really began to understand the crisis, not only regarding the quality of water, but also the availability of water and the substantial erosion of the cultural institutions that govern water and land use, the land grant system and the acequia system, and the very fundamental institutions of Indo-Hispano culture. To this day, local, state, and federal authorities have continued to weaken these foundations. Here are but a few examples of what we are facing in this crisis in New Mexico. And when I mean crisis, we are in terms of immediate attention that has to be paid to, and that's when I say crisis, that's what I mean. New Mexico is at the center of global warming and climate change in the Southwest. We're right in the middle of it. The last 17 years have been the driest years since records have been kept. Of the 17,000 original acres of water in the acequia system of the Las Vegas land grant, only 1,000 remain. For the past 5 of the last 7 years, the Gallinas River has dried up before it gets to San Agustin. Water theft from both the Gallinas and the Pecos River continues unabated. Portales, Clovis, and West Texas have only 10 years of water left from the Oglala Reservoir. We have lost approximately 2,000 people in population over the last 10 years. If the erosion of water and culture is not resolved soon, there will be no economic development in Las Vegas and northern New Mexico. This is why we are a concerned, our colleagues have written this comprehensive document as a possible guide to assist the Commission in building a comprehensive land water use plan. It must be a plan that incorporates community rights, which essentially means that the communities have a basic and primary right to a clean, safe environment and can exclude entities that are deemed to be harmful to air, water, land, and community-held resources. I hope you take this resolution seriously.
Thank you, Mr. Andre. Next speaker is Reno Ortega.
My name is Georgina Ortega. I'm here representing the Las Vegas Land Grant, and I'm really concerned about the future of the land and water in Las Vegas, San Miguel County, northern New Mexico. I've only been a resident here since 1997, but since then, I have been deeply rooted in issues that concern the well-being of the communities here. My concern here is that we, or myself, and also you, as commissioners, are stewards of the land and the water here, just as I am for representing the Las Vegas Land Grant. And with this document that we're presenting to you today, that all of you look at it carefully and pick and choose as you need, but a lot of this will be, I feel, would be very beneficial in deciding how the future of Las Vegas and northern New Mexico is going to be able to survive, and for the farmers, for the children, for clean water, so we have water to plant and to grow and to indulge in, like at Story Lake or any of the rivers that we have. So this is something that we're looking at in the future. Remember, we are talking about the future generations, not today, tomorrow, next year. This is the future. And as stewards of this community, I hope you all look at this and read it carefully and apply some of this. And if you need any help in that, myself as a community member, I would be more than willing to be part of a committee to help you. So please take this and definitely look at it seriously. Thank you.
Next speaker, Miguel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Emilio Aragon, and I wish you would keep this little saying in mind, and it's just an old Mexican saying, el zarape sí, pero el indito no. And when you're considering these land use and water use resolution, I hope you remember that, because since the start of, what was his name, Captain Pike, when he did the Santa Fe Trail, we've had a lot of gentrification going on, and we are victims of it in area-wide and in the city also. But one of the areas that I'm concerned about is up here in the Rosada area, Canencito de Manelitas. There's a gentleman out there that's got quite a big ranch, and there's ponds that are always filled to the brim. The river went through a very serious drought recently, but this gentleman has his ponds filled to the brim. That's one example. Now we got the Pecos River water rights swap, and that's causing some problems up there, but I don't know how we resolve that, because those individuals getting together on their water rights. But that affects our water usage and water availability. We got the Gallinas River diversion. These people come in here, and I don't know how they pass it off to us, but they get what they want. They divert the water, they do whatever they want with it. And this is water that has been flowing in these rivers for centuries. But these newcomers come in with their gentrification efforts, and they make us victims of themselves. Now you look at that, and you go over to Pecos, and we're talking within the confines of the Las Vegas land grant. Pecos is outside of it, but everything else is within the Las Vegas land grant, which now amounts to very little. But the Pecos is another diversion. We have the Gallinas River, and now we have people concerned in Bernal about the junkyard there, about polluting the water table. How much are we going to let this go on before we do something to protect the citizens of our area that have been here sacrificing and providing their taxes and their hard-earned work to keep the place viable? And then these newcomers come in, and they just, with the gentrification in their mind, they come and they take and take and take very valuable stuff that we cannot replace, and we are constantly losing it. Thank you.
Next speaker is Ernesto.
Good afternoon, Ernesto Lujan, Mr. Chairman and board members. Las Vegas Land Grant applied at one particular time in 1932 for 1 million acres. Congress approved only half of that. And one of the things that really interests me, and I'm very confused, and I've been doing some research, is this allotments that were actually deeded from the land grant to all the people that lived within the land grant. I'll give you an example. Let's say San Jeronimo. Okay, San Jeronimo, the people around San Jeronimo only got about 30 to 40 acres or maybe less of irrigated land. Okay, and that's all they asked for, to be approved by the board. They approved it. But then, on the outside of this acreage that was needed, if someone got more than maybe 50 or 60 acres, Hispanos from here, that's all they asked for. They considered all the other land as being common land. But when the Board of Las Vegas Land Grant, which included, the outsiders, they actually asked anyone that came around to put in a request for, let's say, an amount of land, that they wanted. And I found that the majority of these people got not only 300 by 500 and 1,000 acres around. So that's one thing that kind of like interests me and it bothers me, because I say, well, I mean, these other people that were not even from here, they came and they got all these, what I called extra land. And they were deeded to them because the board was, they were outsiders. Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about the water. Okay. The silent war. It appears to me that Las Vegas in the San Miguel County keeps growing and growing, y no tenemos agua, and yet they're approving subdivisions here, subdivisions over there, and more people are coming in, and I doubt that we'll be able to stop them. Okay. But we are running out of water, and we have to do something to protect that water and the land use. I suggest that from now on, any land and water use plan should include all the land grants within the state and within the county, so that we have a say-so on how this plan will benefit all of us. Gracias.
Buenos días, les de Dios. Ladies and gentlemen of the commission, you have heard some testimonies here that I didn't even know were coming up today. I came to you because my concern is very, very immediate. And I wrote down that it was in reference to water and legal matters. I'm not going to go through the history that you just heard. I'm glad that these people came through, and I echo what they just told you. One of our major concerns, and it's like Mr. Lujan and Mr. Angel mentioned, we are losing the value of water, and we have no one stronger than the commission to help us support and keep those values and keep the water locally. And I don't know if there's in your description of what your authority is. I felt that a long time ago, one of the most important issues and one of the high-ranking topics was water. I hear a few stories that you're not involved with water, that it's a state engineer who handles all the water out of Santa Fe, and this should not be the case. I think you have heard from the hearts of people who have dealt. This Friday, we go before the judge in Roswell, Judge Wexler, to try to settle the final issue of the Pueblo water right doctrine that was given to the city of Las Vegas by the Supreme Court in 1962. 50 years later, the Supreme Court decided, after us contending it was wrong, the water belongs to the land. Agua es vida. There's nothing more important in this earth que el agua. Your life is 80% water. A watermelon, I was told, is 96%. Are we going there? People, right now, on Friday, the judge had ordered a special master to come in. He came out of Colorado to try to settle the differences between the city and the acequias on the water rights. After 2 or 3 years, Ms. Varela, you know how long this has taken. You've been through this every inch of the way. He finally made his recommendation. And remember, I told you, after 50 years, the Supreme Court had made a mistake. So now, in 2004, they took the water right doctrine rights away from the city of Las Vegas. Well, he cleared that mistake by clearing 50 years of the acequias going dry without water, and he set it back in the district court. Would you call that another mistake? We do. Because in that recommendation by the special master out of Colorado, not even New Mexico, he recommended that the city of Las Vegas get an 1835 adjudication right, which would put them first in line of legal matters. There has never been, by the state engineer, a junior right holder given a senior right. What is wrong with our courts? That now they're recommending that the city get a senior right on 800 acres of water rights, leaving the acequias being junior to them. People, this is totally wrong. I told this to Tiny Martinez when the town of Las Vegas first learned about this water issue. And he told me that 5,000 people needed water, and there are just a few of us acequeros, a handful of us, needing water for our land. People, there isn't anything more important than water to raise your food and fiber that keeps us alive. Now, we go before a judge, one person, to make a decision whether the city gets what they recommended after they lost the Pueblo water right issue, get compensated, mind you, when they were the benefactors of 50 years of water, when we were the victims of 50 years without water. Something has to be done, and I'm hoping that this commission, on what was presented here today, can do something and take it by the bull, by the horns, and do something about protecting our water issues. Now we have our watershed. It has become a fire shed, not a watershed. Here again, the federal government, which is the U.S. Department of Agriculture, for 46 years, 36 years, mind you, they made a 15-year plan that wasn't followed, so they went another 15 years, and they've gone 6 years into another water plan that did not work. Now, we have this right in front of us. Our watershed is drying up because of federal government mismanagement. The issue that I think we need to come up with is, I've got one more, and this is really important. This one goes back to December the 4th. I mean, goes forward. Just over, now in December the 4th, we go before the same judge to file against the United States Fish and Wildlife Service attorney, who are owners of Story Project. 64% of Story Project is owned by the federal government. And when the adjudication on the Gainas River, which was mentioned here, is like a V, these adjudication rights are dwindling in acreage and everything. We have less than 800 acres. Somebody mentioned 1,000. We're under 1,000 acres. Now the Fish and Wildlife Service attorney from the Department of Justice has created the greatest injustice to the Gainas River, the city of Las Vegas, and the acequias on the Gainas River. They filed against 42 of us, trying to go against the state engineer's adjudication rights that just finished. Ms. Varela can tell you how long it's taken to get that done. They are the experts in water issues and water delivery, and they gave us certificates of water rights. Lo and behold, the Fish and Wildlife Service came and filed against 44 of us, taking our water rights away from us to waste them. You know, the water coming out of Story Lake to Story Project, if you release 100 acre-feet of water, 54% of those water rights are lost in delivery because our canal is built on a shale layer. The water just seeps out of it and we lose over 50% of it. And now they want 800 more acres of water rights away from those that the state engineer had already adjudicated. Please, people, consider this as your authority in this county to help us. This Department of Justice, is the attorney, has created the biggest injustice. I thank you for your time, and I'm sorry I went over.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt. Next speaker is Miguel Garcia. Good afternoon, commissioners. Good afternoon. ¿Cómo están? I sent this to you guys in your email, but I wanted to deliver it in person. And I couldn't be here last month because we had rain and they got rained out.
Good afternoon, commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Manuel Garcia, and in June we submitted a petition to place the C53B road back into the county road log with 13 signatures. Only 10 signatures are required from landowners within 2 miles of the road. And the New Mexico statutes indicate that after a petition is received pursuant to section 67-5-5 and MSA 1978, the commission shall appoint a board of 3 property owners in the county as road viewers to view and mark out the requested road. Shall, in this case, means must. That's the legal meaning. The commission shall set a date and time for the viewing of the requested road. That's NMSA 67-5-9. So I'd like to request the commission to follow the rule of law, follow the statutes, and not step away and around the statutes that was mentioned by the young lady, so that you don't violate the rule of law. You're kind of a junior or a new commission, so it would behoove you to not allow the staff to put you in an tenuous situation of breaking the law. So we have a duly made petition with a proper amount of signatures, a legal amount of signatures. That's all the legal investigation that's required. So the petition should go forward. It should not have been removed from the agenda. And I asked the commissioners to look at why it was removed from the agenda and for it to be placed back onto the agenda, because you don't solve a problem by making more problems. You have to find a solution. You know, that road's important to 13 people. It's a community. There's a church there. Property values are suffering. People are landlocked. People can't sell their properties. And this is something that the previous administration didn't consider, you know, what would happen to those 13 or 14 property owners that own land, you know, 2 miles from the C53B road. So the issues are current. Commissioner Varela always asks, why does this guy always keep on telling us about this? Because it's important. There's a church that we want to save there. We spent $10,000 rebuilding that church. We have a tiny community. Please help us save our community. Don't allow these people to come in and steal our water, steal our land, take our roads, and take our resources. We must stand up. You must fight for us. Thank you very much.
Next speaker is Dr. Eric.
Muy buenas tardes. Me quedo ante ustedes su humilde servidor Eric Romero para servir a ustedes. I stand before you humbly, Mr. Chair, Commissioner members. Again, a privilege to be able to have the position to speak to you. I want to speak from a variety of different perspectives, and that's the key word I wish to address: perspective, perspicuity. First and foremost, I am a community member. I'm a family member. I'm part of this community. Like to be recognized first and foremost as such. I'm also a faculty member at Highlands University. I teach in the Language and Culture Department. In particular, I teach a course which is New Mexico Land Grant reservation and Azteca communities. And by means of that course, we get to take a historical perspective of understanding how land stewardship and land tenureship changes have changed historically here in New Mexico, and how we've had a variety of levels of governments that have interpreted different kind of levels of understanding both moral law and statutory law. The third capacity that I come before you is because I share part of your orientations on leadership. It may not be known that I'm also on the State Commission for Aztecas, so I serve the state as far as looking at some of the land and water issues. We are an advisory group to the state, to the governor's office, and to state legislature. Part of that bigger area and understand the perspective is to recognize there's been a lot of different levels of governments that are came into making decisions around land and water here in New Mexico, in particular here in San Miguel County. First and foremost, this is Native American lands, Jicarilla, Kiowa, Comanche, Anasazi peoples have been here, and they've had land stewardship practices that are still remnant, and we find vestiges to this today. There was a time period that this was under Spanish governance, different levels of the viceroyalty, different levels of governance. And I do remind you that in 1681, there was the establishment of the La Ley de la Recopilación de las Leyes de las Indias, which is one of the first forms of statutory law that gave us issue and gave us structure of being able to understand how we can make significant community-oriented land and water decisions. And I mention that because it speaks about a recognition that when we make decisions about land and water, that it should take the whole of the community, the whole of our populations into consideration. Certainly during the Mexican period, the territorial period, and I must remind everybody, at one time this was considered by Texas to be part of the Republic of Texas. As odious as that sounds, we were under that governance as well. But during those different periods, there's always been an emphasis that leadership take a moral responsibility in deciding on the well of the community, not only in the commons lands, but in decisions that are posterity oriented, that have a look to the future as to what would be most beneficial to our communities and our populations. So I ask you, in the manner of how you look at these, the resolution that's before you, you look at it from that historical perspective that tells us that leadership has always been an interpretive and a policy direction, in that it's up to you to maintain and to establish policy and recognition and law that is beneficial to the whole of the community. And there's nothing more beneficial to the community than recognizing how we articulate with our land, how do we use water. And so the resolution that's before you gives some suggestions to you as far as you making decisions that are beneficial to not only our community, but in beneficial to our natural environment, and that we're looking at sustainability, community orientation, and again recognizing that there's been people before us that have historically made adequate and moral decisions that have protected our water, our land, and our communities. So thank you very much, and again, please consider this as you make decisions around the resolution.
Thank you, Dr. Miller. Next speaker, Leslie Humble-Turk.
What I handed out was, on top is what I'm going to speak about. And then there is a piece written by Brad Turk, and then another by Bob Wesley. They were unable to attend today, so they asked me to hand their statements to you. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Leslie Hamel-Turk, and I live on Las Despensas Road, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. I would like to address concerns with the fourth paragraph in Section 3 of the resolution being presented to the county that recommends the county adopt a community rights ordinance such as the City of Las Vegas. Number one, the mayor of Las Vegas never signed the ordinance because of the constitutional issues. and I have listed some of the constitutionally questionable statements. I will not read them here in the interest of time. Number 2, when Mora County enacted a virtually identical community rights ordinance, it was overturned by the U.S. District Court. Mora County has recently enacted an ordinance that is very similar to our oil and gas ordinance here in San Miguel County, as well as Santa Fe County. Number 3, in the 2015 New Mexico legislative session, 5 bills were put forward by Republicans with the intent to preempt counties from local control of oil and gas activities in their counties. The backers of the bills repeatedly spoke of the ban in Mora as impetus to enact preemption. It was clear that having a county enact a ban emboldened them to push for preemption. I believe that enacting a community rights ordinance in San Miguel County would draw not only an expensive lawsuit, but more push to preempt at the state level. If successful, all the counties and municipalities in the state that currently have ordinance would find them negated, as well as those like Sandoval County that are in the process of developing their own oil and gas ordinance. The community rights ordinance deems that the county would secede from the state of New Mexico as well as the United States of America if faced with preemption. San Miguel County has a robust 178-page oil and gas ordinance. It provides under the local planning and zoning authority for the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens in a meaningful and legal manner. It requires environmental baseline testing of air, water, and soil, adequate infrastructure development, adequate setbacks from sensitive areas, water wells, and structures. Industry must pay all costs of oil and gas development without local subsidy. As government officials who, like the mayor of Las Vegas, have sworn to uphold the Constitution of the state of New Mexico, as well as the United States of America, if you should decide to look further into the possibilities of including this problematic paragraph in an otherwise reasonably good resolution, I strongly advocate consulting with an attorney whose expertise is in constitutional matters as your first step. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Final speaker today is Miguel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. My name is Hilario Romero, and I come here from Agua Fria, New Mexico, which is a traditional community in the state of New Mexico, and it is because we made it so. And what that does is it makes the traditional community protected from a lot of the different outside influences of development and industry and all of those things that can destroy a community. And so I also am on the board of the group of communities below Santa Fe, Agua Fria, La Cieneguilla, the land grant, and La Cienega, and La Bajada, and also Peña Blanca, which are all located along the Rio Santa Fe. And we are slowly moving in this direction with each one of the communities and becoming traditional communities. And I think that gentleman earlier was talking about protecting his community. This is one way you can do it, and counties can do it, and it is a legal matter and a legal way of protecting their community. Many of these communities in Las Vegas and in San Miguel County are now ghost towns because they weren't protected. And this is what has happened throughout the centuries, especially since the U.S. took over. And as the former New Mexico state historian and as a former retired history professor, I can tell you this, that having studied and taught New Mexico history for 45 years, that the resolution and its history is real. It's backed up. And so if you want the documentation that backs up the resolution, just let me know and I will provide it to you. And I verify what's on this document. Most important is that what's happened here in San Miguel County is unfortunate, because there was a land grant that was also given to my ancestors. I was part of the Las Vegas land grant. Today we own nothing, absolutely nothing of that land grant. I had family 5 generations ago that were out here before the founding of Las Vegas, on both sides of my family, the Jicarilla Apache and Miguel Romero y de Vaca, who came here with his cousin Luis Maria Cabeza de Vaca in 1817, way before the town of Las Vegas. And I can tell you that this history is still going on, and it's become a new colony in a way, San Miguel County, along with many other counties in New Mexico. They're treated as colonies. These large developments, these international organizations and corporations, multinational corporations come in here, and they look, they're just holding their hands, just rubbing their hands, saying, oh look, this is just territory ripe for the reaping. And that's what they will do. They don't have any consideration over citizens. And because we are such a very small county like San Miguel County, in terms of population, there's not a whole lot you can do to keep these people out. And so it's really important that you as commissioners become the stewards, not only of the land, but also of the water. And that's why this document was created, to start. Let's start moving in that direction. Let's start moving together. Let's start working on plans to where we can protect our communities in the future, because it's not us that's going to have to deal with this. It's going to be our children and our grandchildren. And so thank you very much for allowing me to speak here this afternoon, and that's all.
I want to inform that there was one lady that wanted to speak that hadn't, and I'm going to allow you to speak. Go ahead and come up, state your name, the record, and this will be the final speaker.
Good afternoon, commissioners. Good afternoon, public. My name is Sofia Martinez. My family is from the Mora area. We have land, or we live in Wagon Mound. We also have land that is 3 miles into San Miguel County. And I was here a couple of months ago talking about the state roads and how my father basically ran a school bus for many years down this way, so we want the road fixed, but that's another issue. I do want to I want to reinforce a lot of what people said today, because gentrification is a big issue, whether we're talking about Wagon Mound, Mora, and the land that's being bought out by outsiders. That sounds like a sci-fi novel, but it's, there's a good reason to kind of look at it in broad ways, but we've come to the point where we need to change our dichos. Instead of mi casa es su casa, we have begun to change that mi casa es muy mi casa, because we have lost lots of land and rights in this county, and we definitely depend on the county to protect our rights. I want to talk a little bit about the issue, and again, I want to just not repeat, but I want to reinforce the woman with the red that also read some of the concerns that Dr. Wesley had. I too have those same concerns. Being from Mora County, I have been involved in water and landfill and other environmental justice issues in Mora County for over 20 years. I'm president of the Concerned Citizens of Wagon Mound and Mora County. We have fought the Northeastern New Mexico Regional Landfill for 15 years before, after 4 attempts to get a permit. And under the Susana administration, they were given a special waste permit, which allows them to bring special waste from all over the country. It's not hazardous waste what goes to Carlsbad, and it's not municipal solid waste that we make in our homes, but it's special waste that other states and cities do not want near them, but they're perfectly willing to send them out to places like New Mexico and Mora County and Wagamon in particular. I would caution, I think we need to protect our water, we need to protect our land. I wish that our gente would not be selling their land. I wish we could figure a way to keep our gente here. One of the projects that we run through the concerned citizens of Wagamon and Mora County, as I said, has been fighting the landfill. We've also in the last 7 years created a garden so that we could put to good use the water right of the village, which we also worked on. The village of Wagamon has a water right with the same person that tried to take away our water right and who brought in the private special waste landfill or the private landfill. With the citizens' rights ordinance that was discussed a while ago, basically it was outsiders again that came in and with a lot of money, because no one can disagree with farming and ranching rather than fracking is a good thing. No one has to convince me that mi gente, whether in San Miguel County, where some of our land is at, or Mora County, where some of our land is at, support water, oil and gas drilling, because that's what it is. Fracking is just a technique to bring it up, right, cheaply and more efficiently. And when Santa Fe hired many years ago Dr. Freilich to create a very strong citizens' rights ordinance, they created a really strong citizens' rights ordinance because they have the money, right? So they decided to go away from this. The oil and gas industry decided to come to the playpen, because that's what they called Mora County and San Miguel. So the citizens' rights, the democracy school out of Pennsylvania, Thomas Lindsay, and put in a lot of money into Mora County and fighting what we had been for 1 year under the directorship of Paula Garcia, the chair of the commission, looking at all of the different regulatory ordinances that have been done throughout the country. After 1 year of looking at that, an election funded by outsiders basically put that work to nothing. And we engaged in a process that left us a divided county in the courts and basically bringing up ridiculous provisions. We will secede from the United States. Now, if La Chicanada decided to secede from the United States, I'd be all in there. But Thomas Lindsay from Pittsburgh doesn't, or from Pennsylvania, doesn't decide for us when we're going to secede from the United States. So all these things are contradictions. Dr. Freilich worked on the citizens' rights ordinance that you all did. I think that you need to maybe do some hearings with Dr. Freilich to really look at a citizens' rights ordinance, and as long as you make sure that you don't bring in Thomas Lindsay and the democracy school, because you'll end up a very divided community. And I think you all have some experience with that. So thank you. Protect our water, protect our land.
Moving on, new business. Presentation will be limited to 10 minutes. First presentation on community rights by Michael Coca.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, and public. My name is Michael Coca, and I was appointed by the county commission to help draft the first 40-year water plan, which was approved by the commission back in late 80s, early 90s. I'm also past president of the Rio Gallinas Acequia Association and a former planner with the New Mexico Department of Economic Development, and I'm a member of the Las Vegas Land Grant as an heir. New Mexico is in an ecological crisis. Like the rest of the United States, uncontrolled growth and exploitation of the natural environment has placed us in the middle of a man-made environmental disaster. It is for this reason a group of concerned, socially and environmentally conscious Norteños have been meeting to discuss the reasons for the crisis and to attempt to raise public awareness by showing the public the depth of the problematic issues through publication of a model county resolution that can be used by citizens to enact local ordinances that will address this hemorrhage. This is a model resolution for consideration by counties to have community control of water, land use, environment, and economic development. This document was drafted for the purpose of legally codifying community rights, the state public welfare doctrine, and other pertinent environmental issues, and developing a resolution ordinance and incorporating a resolution and ordinance into the county land use, water, and forest plan. Local and state governments must commit themselves to establishing comprehensive water and land use policy promulgated for public standing and public acceptance in a wide-reaching referendums. Priority rights of the acequias, as reflected in the County Commission Phase 1 and 2 40-year water plans, must be confirmed by the city and the county governments and incorporated into water and land use strategies with the express affirmation of all acequias and ditches in the county. Regulatory controls and amendments to land use code must be ensured that historic rights to water resources be defended by public governance and institutions. This can be achieved through legislative ordinance that would assure that vital water resources, ecological and cultural values and practices are protected under the public welfare doctrine. The county government must incorporate a community rights ordinance such as the City of Las Vegas ordinance, which states that the city has a right to ban businesses and entities that it deems a threat to clean air, water, and land. This ordinance would address natural, cultural, and environmental rights. Community rights to land grants and the acequias have been legally established because these entities are quasi-political subdivisions of the state and were established before the San Miguel County. There are over 200 communities throughout the United States that are starting to use this community rights legislation to protect their water rights and their land. Doug Mickeljohn, Executive Director of New Mexico Environmental Law Center, conducted a legal review of this document. Ben Price, the National Organizing Director for Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund, has done a legal review of the model county resolution and has agreed to provide any assistance in drafting a community rights ordinance for San Miguel County. At issue is the question of whether the county faces more liability by enacting a community rights ordinance that could result in potential suits filed by personal property owners and corporations, or does a county face the long-term permanent liability of county citizens suing the county for allowing the destruction of clean air, water, land, and bioregional watersheds. Both attorneys agreed that San Miguel County faces a greater liability from its own citizens filing suit against the county commission for making decisions that would affect the quality of the water and land. All decisions involving water and land use must undergo a thorough assessment of resources followed by rigorous social, economic, environmental feasibility studies, assessment, and impact statements by the city, county, acequia commissioners, and independent ditch and community groups. A complete analysis of all surface water and underground reserves must be completed, including projected precipitation levels, to ensure that we sustain the survival of our current population before we allow any more growth. Municipalities should fund, develop, and maintain sustainable, decentralized alternative strategies such as solar, wind, biomass, and other appropriate technology applications. Chris Nehad and I talked yesterday, and what he suggested was that this group here meet with the county attorney to discuss the legal review of the document, see if there's any questions about it before we move forward to make it a resolution and or an ordinance. So with that, I would leave it open. Is there time for questions or not?
Any comments on that?
No, I'd like to meet and discuss the proposed resolution There are parts of it that apply to our Sequia water rights case in Pecos against the billionaire Strickling Ranch, where the county, in alignment with the Sequias, are fighting the taking of water rights out of Pecos and being placed in a private developer's ranch. And as I fought this lawsuit, what I saw was maybe we need more or additional rules and regulations pertaining to water rights in Acequias and trying to keep those water rights rather than allowing them to be transferred out of the Acequia to private individuals, which, in my opinion, if that trend continues, Acequias will be extinct in the future because as time passes without the water in the Acequia, then you lose the whole Acequia, people working it, the culture around it. But that's only one part of the whole resolution. But our comprehensive plan, especially when it comes to fracking, is tremendous and is protecting the county well, but there are other aspects of a comprehensive plan that we should continue to review and continue to improve to protect our rights. I don't necessarily agree with all the approaches mentioned, but I surely agree that we need to evaluate and reevaluate and strengthen our laws where we can clearly see that it's legal and can help us.
Any other comments from the Commission?
Any comments?
Resolution, is that being tried to incorporate with our oil and gas ordinance? And is that possible since the ordinance is already done? And we had a specialist help us with that ordinance. Can we also look at this other resolution?
Well, what I see is, first of all, we need to take great care to protect our oil and gas anti-fracking or regulatory ordinance, which has a lot of control over how land is used when you're talking about oil. So great care has to be taken there that that ordinance is not interfered with or minimized. What we are talking about are several different legal theories. Some of those theories have not been substantiated in law. Some of the theories, for example, there was a statement made that the city of Las Vegas passed a community rights ordinance. But the fact is that the mayor never signed that, so it never became law. But thirdly, there is always room for improvement in working with planning and zoning, working with the community, looking at how can we approach a change or improvement in the law without being in the same situation as the liability faced by Mora County and the state government and the federal government in dealing with areas of preemption. So to answer your question, no, we will not look at minimizing the fracking regulation ordinance, which the county spent a lot of money on and which has been recognized as a very good regulatory tool.
Comment, question for
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Kulyani.
So what's the difference between home rule and your community rights ordinance? You answer that?
Can I do what?
Home rule. What's the difference between home rule and like this ordinance? I would think that home rule would come before a resolution like that. Would give you like power to put in a resolution like that. Have you studied home rule also?
No, we haven't tried home rule. I think that, prior to the formation of the county and stuff, community rights were already established under Spanish and Mexican law. And so, for example, the acequias and land grants were here prior to the county, and they were working under Spanish and Mexican rule, which recognized community rights.
Well, community rights are within
And so, I mean, so the whole question, you know, I know you guys pass an ordinance and all that, and of course, when you pass an ordinance, what you do is you open the door to the oil industry, because you say, you guys can come in if we regulate you, even though it's a strong ordinance. I understand that, but you're opening the door. Instead of just saying no, you open the door to oil and gas exploitation. So I think the question is, on their comprehensive land use plan that you guys are doing now, is that we need to review the plan, because we need to recognize the community rights of these entities and include them in the plan. And the acequias have community rights, the land grants have community rights, and they would stand up for those rights if anybody tried to come in and frack or do whatever. Doesn't make any difference whether the county enacted an ordinance. Does that answer your question?
No, but I understand what you're saying. Los Alamos is home rule county, you know, and that allows them to enact resolutions like this much easier than we do. So I was just wondering if we're putting the horse before the cart. I mean, the cart before the horse. I'm wondering if you had researched it yet.
No, like I mentioned before, I think what people didn't realize was that in terms of liability, the way I looked at it is the county faces a bigger liability from a class action suit from the citizens of the county against the county for making bad decisions regarding oil and gas. There's more of a liability there than somebody suing you from a corporation or somewhere else. And the two attorneys that I talked to did a legal review, and they both agreed with me that
Commissioner Varela.
You have some comments.
Yes, I yield.
Thank you. I'd like to thank your people for coming and present these issues. And of course, I'm sympathetic to land and water issues. And I am working on preparing some agricultural land and water rights protections. And as you know, I've talked to you and invited you to participate in both the regional water planning efforts that the state engineer is undertaking, and that was part of the state water plan, and also the comprehensive plan of the county. I was on Planning and Zoning Commission for 8 years prior to serving on the County Commission, and we worked on this, Commissioner Paulette, a year and a half to 2 years of hearings for that ordinance. So I don't want to open that again. We have very good protections for oil and gas, and I don't believe it's an invitation, but a protection for our county. And I'd like to work with you on preparing something that is really meaningful for agricultural land and water rights protection, but I can't support the community rights ordinance. I just want to let you know. But thank you.
You and I talked about that. That's fine.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to regular order. An item that's very near and dear to my heart. And I'd like to present this on behalf of the grateful county commission, I'm sure, the recognition for Judge last time of life. You can say right there. Here. Just to give you the picture of something that's underlined, way back, and we would date ourselves. Back in 1970, when we were police officers, we lived with the city of Las Vegas. And we went on for years, we became very good friends. We almost call ourselves brothers. From there, we moved on. I moved on to the Sheriff's Department. He was the DA's office. We still work together very closely. He moved on to be a district judge. I became a magistrate judge. Again, we worked together. We continue to remain friends. He's been very ill, and he's with us, thank God. Yeah, he had him almost a year ago, Saturday after Thanksgiving it was, when he was flown to Albuquerque and then to Denver and underwent some procedures, and thank God, by the grace of God, he is with us today. This resolution comes as a result of Commissioner Padilla, who also worked with him in the police department years ago before we did. and he suggested it, and it was authored by our counselor, David, who was also a close friend of Judge Sandoval. And they go way back as well. Go ahead and present the resolution now. The Board of County Commissioners of San Miguel County, knowing the accomplishments of Matthew John Sandoval, does hereby extend its recognition, and whereas the Honorable Matthew J. Sandoval, 4th Judicial District Judge for the counties of Guadalupe, Mora, and San Miguel, retired from 50 years of public service on August 1st, 2018, having served for over 9 years with the 4th Judicial District Court, with 6 years as Chief Judge. Whereas Judge Sandoval's extensive career also includes 2 terms as District Attorney for the counties of Guadalupe, Mora, and San Miguel, City of Las Vegas Attorney, Assistant District Attorney, Private Practice Attorney focusing on personal injury and disability cases, and as the Captain of the Las Vegas Police Department, where he began his law enforcement career in 1968 at the age of 17, and worked his way through the ranks of dispatcher, patrol officer, detective, training officer, and captain, retiring with 20 years of service. Whereas Judge Sandoval's friends have always known him as Matt, graduated from West Las Vegas High School in 1968 and New Mexico Highlands University, having earned a bachelor's degree in sociology in 1975 and a master's degree in sociology in 1982, all while working full-time. Upon his 20-year retirement in 1988 from the Las Vegas Police Department, he attended and graduated from the University of New Mexico School of Law, having earned his Juris Doctorate in 1990. Whereas Judge Sandoval could be described as a Johnny Appleseed of potential, because as a police officer, he knew when to give a person a break and when to arrest them. So many lives have been saved because of Officer Sandoval understood the differences between a foolish teenage mistake and intentional harmful act. Many of those who were given a chance to prove themselves never made the mistake again and went on to finish school and become responsible citizens. He had the vision to see the potential positive future misguided youth had. He planted seeds of hope and vision in them, allowing them to see beyond their immaturity, permitting them to envision successful and prosperous futures, and many allowed the seed of hope they received for him to grow and flourish. Whereas Judge Sandoval, through his steadfast, just, compassionate, selfless, and focused dedication in ensuring protection for those in need and justice for all, continue with humility, patience, empathy, fairness, and firmness as he performed the duties as District Attorney and District Judge. Whereas Judge Sandoval, through his gentle and genuine approach known as Grandpa, to many children who have separated from their parents by the state, because he has lived life as a father and a grandfather, Judge Sandoval demonstrated his wisdom in real-life experiences through his rulings and treatment of families in his critical family law position. Whereas Judge Sandoval's wisdom and influence, New Mexico now has a force of community contributing adults who have had families who clearly understand or who are conscientiously attempting to achieve this understanding of what behavior is right and what behavior is unacceptable in a civilized society. Whereas Judge Sandoval was so well respected for his family experience and wisdom that the state courts, lawyers, and children protective services agencies recognized him as the Family Court Judge of the Year. Whereas Judge Sandoval has been a very effective lobbyist, his humility, honesty, and knowledge of complex issues has made him highly respected by legislators. He has worked with the counties to improve infrastructure projects. Whereas Judge Sandoval was born to his beloved parents, Matt and Helen Sandoval, who were leaders in their own right and deserve much of the credit for shaping Judge Sandoval's values and sensitivity. And whereas Judge Sandoval met and married the love of his life, Loretta, who gave him 3 beautiful children, Matthew Jr., Melissa, and Marcos, and faithfully and wholeheartedly throughout the 46 years plus of marriage supported his immense energy and passion for serving the public. Whereas Judge Sandoval is a proud father of Melissa A. Vigil, proud father of Kenny Vigil, father-in-law of Kenny Vigil, and especially proud grandfather to 5 children, Benito, Mateo, Angelica, Diego Marcos, and Ariana Vigil. He has shared his love of family with all he has served, and whereas Judge Sandoval and his family have been blessed by God, whose healing has allowed the judge the ability to be with us today to accept this honor and to hereby honor for his reputable dedication to the citizens of San Miguel County. Now therefore to be resolved by the citizens of San Miguel County Board of County Commissioners that congratulations and recognition is extended to Judge Matthew John Sandoval, one of our own, a wise and loving New Mexican, on his retirement from public service. Passed and signed, sealed, approved on the 13th day of November 2018 by the Board of County Commissioners for San Miguel County, New Mexico. Let's give him a hand.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, my dear friend, commissioners. You're right about Commissioner Padilla and I. We started in what they called Old Town, West Las Vegas, in 1968. That seems like a long time ago, but when you blink your eyes, here we are. But I'd really like to thank you. I'd like to thank Dave. Sometimes I think he knows too much about me. Anyway, and I look forward to the future. I thank God that I'm here. I had a very serious episode. I was in the hospital for 6 months, in bed basically, and so I had to learn how to walk, how to chew, how to swallow, how to drink water. But I have no regrets. I worked really hard to get up at 4 in the morning and hit it hard. People think that stress maybe gave me this, but no, we've had stress since we were back in Old Town, you know. Like when I went to law school, everybody was all nervous, and they said, "How come you're not nervous?" I said, "Well, nobody's putting a gun in my face," and I'm like, "Nobody's trying to beat me up, so this is nothing." So anyway, I have no regrets, and I really appreciate what San Miguel County has also done for me in my career. We worked real hard together. Harold, who's now coming on the commission, we worked on funding for the DA's office. We worked on funding for the new courthouse, and which allowed, when the DA's office, when I was the DA, they moved out of here, and were able to utilize the entire courthouse. But the county commission has done a tremendous job, and I welcome the two new. My neighbor Max Trujillo, he grew up across the street. Actually, he was just a little kid, or tamo viejo, you know. But anyway, Harold and him are going to be taking on this massive responsibility, because it's a tremendous responsibility. And the commissions have done a good job. We have a fairly decent infrastructure. The thing with the roads, my God, there's so many roads. I don't know how you deal with that, but I'm just very thankful, and I thank all of you for your prayers, and God listened, and here I am. Muchísimas gracias.
I have a comment from my fellow commissioners, but this time I'd like a motion to approve. Motion to approve. Resolution 2018-10-13-CM. Motion made by Commissioner Varela. Second by Commissioner Martinez. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Anybody have comments to take on the line?
I'd like to thank you for your service, and it was my honor that you got to swear me in 2 years ago on this very platform right here. And my granddaughter was jumping around and making my daughter very nervous. And you assured her that that was okay, that this was her space. My little granddaughter was 2 years old at the time. That says a lot about who you are, and I want to thank you so much for sharing yourself with us.
Go ahead.
Just on the wall, this is art. Listen, I'd like to thank you for being here in my life. When we first started law enforcement back in '68, you and I have been a team ever since. And I've always appreciated your advice and valued your advice on a lot of issues. and I saw myself as being for the house. And I'm sure that God has you here for a purpose, and we know that you were very sick, and you came back. There's another purpose for you here, so we were waiting to see what else we're doing. You know? But thank you for your services.
Any comment? Incoming Commissioner Harold Garcia has purchased a cake. There's some cake in the break room for some of you that would like to partake. You can go out this door. Outside this door. The break room is right there. We have a piece of cake. You're welcome to. Thank you.
I would like to say something. I'd like to thank you for your service to our community, to our children, our people of this community. And I wish you well. And I hope you're looking really good. I hope you get stronger and better. Thank you.
Thank you. I can let Chris 40 pounds.
You're on your way.
I'm on my way. To be my wife, that's what we come for.
There she comes. Oh, no.
Just right on to you.
Oh, this is my wife, Loretta. She's still up with all the words that do it, that's how long we've been married. But we've been for about 2 years before. Thank you, Loretta, for being there for just under one.
Pardon?
Thank you for being there for just under one.
I love the guys that are there.
Thank you for being very nice with me. Well, she was with me. I was in the hospital for 2 months in Denver, and she stayed with me at the hospital for 2 months straight. There are 2 of my grandchildren here. We have a lot of us.
Harold, would you take him out? Lorena, Diego Marcos, Mateo, there's some cake back here. Anybody else that wants to? We're going to move on with the business so we can take care of the agenda here. Item number 2, resolution 10-31-18 GRP, support of the Hermit Street Watershed Alliance in the Gallinas River project. Mr. Madrid.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I had, this item is on here for your approval. Before we ask for your vote to approve the resolution, we'll have a short presentation from a pair of ladies that I had intended to introduce, but I think I'm going to blindside Commissioner Ulibarri and ask him to do that honor, as he's worked with him longer than I have. If you would, Commissioner.
It would be my pleasure. Thank you, sir. What are you doing today? You guys just do some fantastic work. I was happy that you guys invited me to your symposium not too long ago. It was fantastic. Thank you for that. Resolution number 10-31-18 GRP in support of the Hermits Peak Watershed Alliance and Gallinas River Park project. Whereas the San Miguel County Board of Commissioners recognizes the efforts of the Hermits Peak Watershed Alliance and the Gallinas River Park revitalization project. Whereas the San Miguel County Board of Commissioners joins the City of Las Vegas and the State of New Mexico in the enhancement and preservation of the Gallinas River and the Gallinas River Park. Whereas the San Miguel County Board of Commissioners recognizes the value of the restored Gallinas River and park to the vitality of our community's culture, tradition, recreation, economy, and environment. Whereas the San Miguel County Board of Commissioners appreciates the grand value of the unity among cultures and communities created by Gallinas River Park. Now, therefore, the governing body of the San Miguel County stands together in support of funding requests by the Hermits Peak Watershed Alliance for the Gallinas River Park enhancements. Furthermore, San Miguel County commits to work together with the Hermits Peak Watershed Alliance on revitalization work and to help locate funding to enable these enhancements. Passed, signed, and sealed and approved on this 9th day of October 2018 by the Board of County Commissioners at in San Miguel County, New Mexico.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I think we'll need to correct the date on this resolution, but that's okay. Before you actually take the vote, I'd like to ask Leo Knudsen and Elizabeth Barros to step up and with the handout that you have, give you an update on exactly what we're doing.
Thank you, Morris. Thank you so much, Commissioners, for taking your time to listen to our story and to hear what's going on. Is this working?
I can hear you.
Okay. So we were here last, I came with Dr. Edwin Martinez last June, and he told you the story of our vision. And it's such an honor to be back, and it's a wonderful honor to be back to tell you what's happened since then, because so many things have happened since then. I'm not going to restate the vision that Dr. Martinez told so well. Okay. For some reason, it's the wrong presentation. It's the same beginning as probably, this is the one that Dr. Martinez gave. It just looks the same. So, since the story that Edwin Martinez told you last time about our great vision of having a river park that runs all the way from the Montezuma Pond to the Las Vegas Wildlife Refuge, since then, we've decided to focus first on, I'd like to focus first on the river in town. So specifically between Mills Avenue and Grand Avenue. This map is, since this map was made, we've just taken on some wonderful discussions about updating the names and things, so this isn't exactly how it will look. But what I'd like to let you know first and foremost is that when we talk about the river park, the big picture is there, but we're taking a piece that we can sort of actually get our heads around and actually take a bite out of, and that piece is the piece in town. So what we've accomplished so far, since we saw you in June, we have formed, and also it had started at that point in June, we have formed a Guaymas River Park Collaborative, which is I'm just going to put up a list of several of the things, lots of words here, but the key here that I want you to see is that there's a list of government entities and community organizations and interested individuals who have been regularly supporting monthly meetings to form and guide the vision of the Guaymas River Park, to help to make it into a place that, I'm just going to go back here, a place that is something that we can all be proud of, that we can all use, and that we can all enjoy, that is made by us, by our community, for us, but by doing that, we make it so nice for ourselves that anyone passing by on I-25 there would love to stop by and enjoy the park themselves. So the key is that we'd make the park for ourselves, and it would be so lovely that people visiting could enjoy it as well. So back to some other things that we've accomplished. So we've formed the Guaymas River Park Collaborative that anyone here is welcome to be part of. Every third Friday of the month at 2 p.m. at Hewitt Hall is when we have our meetings. Another thing that we've accomplished is that we've received funding from the New Mexico Environment Department, a big grant of $315,000 in order to do river restoration work. And the groundbreaking took place already on that a couple weeks ago. So if you haven't yet, go down to the river right downstream from Bridge Street, and you can watch some of the work going on. There are excavators and things that are happening that are moving around, moving boulders. And what's happening there is that they are working on taking care of making sure that the river has some of its meander back that helps with the health of the river, helps with our water quality and quantity, and also helps with the habitat for trout and other creatures. Another thing that we have accomplished is that we received a grant from Tierra y Montes to continue the engineering drawings for that river restoration design a bit further downstream. or is it upstream? We also received a different grant from the Santa Fe Community Foundation to partake in an education program with a handful of West Las Vegas high school students. This grant's relatively small, $15,000, but such a huge impact because we've got the opportunity to get some high school students involved with the work to design the river park. And they have become, this group of students actually have made some of the most obvious steps forward in that design for the park, which I'll show you in a minute. They also took part in our community design workshop, which is another piece. We received a really interesting grant it was an award from the National Endowment for the Arts. It's actually hard to put a number. The number was $45,000, but it was worth so much in terms of the time of the people that participated. So we got this opportunity to put on a community design workshop, which many of you were part of, and get our community together and hear what we would like our park to be. And then the people who were assigned to us, they listened and they put together a design for us to start to go forward with for the Cayunas River Park. So in this design, so for the community design workshop, we focused on the area from Mills Avenue to Grand and separated it into 4 distinct regions. The region from Mills to Bridge, that we got this sense, the community said that this is the area where we could picture some really the connection, and we had a lot of help from our members who spoke in the public session here. This is where we can picture community gardens and maybe even orchards that the community could use, and medicinal gardens, places where we could come together and be connected to our history of our land grant history, where we can use the land. Everyone in our community could use the land and learn to respect it and learn that we can get what we need from it. We have the area from Bridge down to Prince about, and this is where naturally we would come together to enjoy things like just anything that we'd want to do together, get the community together to have a little concert or to just enjoy having a picnic or something like that. There's a beautiful wetlands area just adjacent to the high school, and then there's a bigger area that we're thinking could be a wonderful place it's like a welcome park. So in this vision that we came up with for the workshop, there's lots of pieces so many ideas, it's like hundreds literally of ideas that our community put together. And then from there, we took all those ideas, we made an action plan, and we started to take the first steps in our Cayunas River Park Collaborative meetings to say which are the first steps we'd like to take. So those steps, really what we've begun with are the obvious things, like the low-hanging fruit. What are the things that we can do that show that we're taking steps to develop our river park that don't cost as much? So some of the ideas that came about in the workshop were simple and fun things like, okay, there is construction going on right now in the river park, so we can't start building playgrounds and things, and we actually couldn't do that until you have the money to do it. But what are some things we could do right now that don't interfere with other things that are going on? And one idea is to take something simple, like to make the river park more of a smooth and continuous area, to make the crossings, say at Bridge Street and Prince, especially Mills as well, but that's a bigger issue because it's such a big crossing. And paint, instead of a regular crosswalk, a crosswalk that, like for example, this one in Raton, where it looks like a three-dimensional crosswalk, but it's just the way it's painted. We had some wonderful ideas during the workshop of making it look like a river and then 3D boulders that you could jump across, so that when motorists are driving down the road, they'd kind of slow down and see something that stood out. So this is something that the Cayunas River Park Collaborative is focused on, saying this could be a wonderful thing to start with. Another piece is another idea is to use some of the willows and elms that we have to cut in the river park area anyhow, and make days where we can get kids out and have a fun time and make something to play with in the park. that would ultimately be temporary, but something that shows that we're continuing to make, thank you so much, I appreciate it, that would continue to show activity in the park. Back to what the handful of West Las Vegas high school students have helped us to achieve. These images are really hard to see. They're going to be quite big signs, but the handful of students learned all year long, last academic year, about what consists of a healthy river. And they learned also about some aspects of specifically about the Guaymas River, some aspects of the history and culture of this particular river. And they were tasked with doing two things. They had to make two interpretive signs. One about wetlands, because there's a beautiful example of wetlands right by their school property. And so this is the image that the students and I and some others came up with right here. It's a beautiful image, really. How they thought through it. I helped them draw some of the image, and then we had some help pulling it all together. When it came to the history and culture sign, this one, again, it's hard to see, but wait till you see it. They'll be installed soon, within a couple months, I think. The students decided to focus on, you can't see the words at the top there, but the main word is acequia and the definition of it. And then there's a picture of a particular compuerto, and that is the Acequia Madre de Las Vegas, which the students decided they wanted to take a picture of that one and really just show a map with Las Vegas in the background, but the river is the main thing, and the acequia showing the location of it to really teach about how important that is. So these first two interpretive signs I'm really proud of. They're part of the whole grand scheme of the park, but just the beginning. We've begun to look for funding for the things that we call the lighter, quicker, cheaper projects like these, where we could make something, maybe if, say, one thing of interest was to make an amphitheater. We can make one, instead of looking for funding for the full thing, make one out of straw bales just to sort of see if the location works and people still would actually use it there. And then if we get a lot of attention and a lot of interest, then maybe go the next step and apply for funding to do something more permanent. We've made proposals to the Las Vegas Community Foundation, the new foundation, and to the Lodgers Tax Board, and we're hoping for some positive feedback there. During the workshop, we received a surprise support from Senator Pete Campos, who said he's pursuing legislative funds to support this project as well. So we're in a really exciting position to focus on the river park in town. And the next big step that we have to take now, coming out of the community workshop, we came away with more than just this map that I showed, but we came away with some conceptual designs, which are, I'm learning about architectural words. I didn't know very much about them before I started this project. That if one has a conceptual design, it gives like a sketch of what would be included where in a particular area. What's needed in order to actually build something is something called a construction designs that have, down to the very last, this is where this bench would be located and these are the screws you would use, that kind of thing. So we need to go from having a conceptual design, which is a very crucial part of the full design, to a construction design. And that's what we're focusing on now. Once we have those, we realize that we have a lot of interest in our community. People have been coming forward left, right, and center saying, we want to do this part and that part. Once we have construction designs, then we can have one organization fund a particular playground, for instance, like Kiwanis has come forward and said they'd like to do. And one organization could fund one bench, for instance, or something else, and so on. So we're in a very exciting point, and we'd like to just be able to answer any questions you might have. I'm Elizabeth Guaros, the Education Director for the Watershed Alliance, and I'm here with Leah Knudsen, who's the Executive Director of the Watershed Alliance.
Thank you.
Chairman.
Commissioner, everybody.
First of all, I want to thank Harold for the cake. I needed that sugar. I had a real early lunch. And I want to thank you guys. You guys have done some great work for years and years and years. But I just want to bring to your attention, about 7 years ago, I did a survey with high school students, 300 high school students. And in the survey, we found that the center of gravity for young people in Las Vegas was Walmart. And that kind of sad. This is going to be our new center of gravity for our young people. And I'm so happy that this is, by the way, in that same survey, they wanted a bowling alley and a movie theater. We've had 2 entrepreneurs already, step up to the plate. But this looks like a new center of gravity for our young people. I want to thank you for all your hard work that you're doing here, putting this together. Thank you.
Any other comment? I have a question, maybe you spoke to it when I stepped out. What's the target completion date?
I'd like to see this before I get too old.
It's just an idea.
It's going to take a while, no question. But we've come up with some timelines and general budgets for the section in town.
Yeah, I think it's really dependent on how long it takes us to raise the funds. We've come up with a tentative budget of $4 million to do all the river restoration work and all the park renovation work from Mills to Graham. Now, raising $4 million is not a small task. And we've got about 450 as a start, but that's just a drop in the bucket. So I'm guessing from Mills to Graham, maybe a 10-year endeavor, but things are going faster than we thought. That's probably the best I could do at this moment.
Mr. Chair, did you mean the current project that's going on right now?
Yes.
Okay, the current river restoration work is going to be done December 15th, and then in the spring we'll plant recommended vegetation and do some landscaping. So that phase is going to be done in the spring. We'll probably have a fishing derby or something to celebrate when we're finished with that. But then we need to find the construction drawing funding and then start building the section between Bridge and Prince. So Bridge to Prince is phase 1 of the Mills to Grand big picture.
All right, thank you.
Just need a vote, Mr. Chair.
At this time, I need a motion to approve resolution number 10-31-18-GRP.
I'll move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made by Commissioner Levarí. Second by Commissioner Varela. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Under item number 3, request to approve capital outlay for Sheriff's Department, Sheriff Gary Gold and Sheriff-elect Chris Lopez.
Hello, Commissioners. I don't think we're going to be able to top that. We're not doing any major stuff here. But thank you for all that hard work. Item number 3, we are respectfully requesting approval of a capital outlay project from 2019 for $80,000 for sheriff vehicles for San Miguel Sheriff's Department. And myself and Sheriff-elect Chris Lopez is here to entertain any kind of questions that you'd like, if there are any. Chris, would you like to say something?
As you know, we do have a rather large county, and our vehicles do pick up quite a few miles every year, so we're constantly rotating out vehicles, and that's why we're here before you today asking for this approval from the commission. But you know, I know that there's still 31 other items on the agenda, so I won't take up too much of your time. If you do have any questions, so you know, we're here to answer.
4,700 square miles, by the way. Anyway, Commissioner Padilla.
Is $80,000 going to cover the fully dressed cars, vehicles?
Yes, it'll be pretty close. I know. I'm not exactly sure what vehicles Sheriff Gold is looking at this point in time. However, I know about 40 to 46,000 is usually what it takes to equip a car, from my knowledge.
All right, motion to approve.
I was going to say, I think you hit the nail on the head. As you know, as time goes on, those cars are going to wear down. We have a lot of miles in this county, and there's a lot of transports to do, so our vehicles don't last very long. We put miles pretty fast, right, Melinda? But yes.
No, the reason I was asking was because you're asking for $80,000 from the legislature, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And capital outlay, I would recommend that you ask for sufficient funding. Probably you can take at least $100,000 to dress 2 police units with all the equipment and vehicles necessary. So that would be my recommendation on the commission wants to amend this. Because if you do get the funding, the following year, the fund will have to be needed to finish investing on the units, radio. So, the commission, what to amend it, to ask for $100,000.
Are you going to make it in the form of a motion? Is that allowed?
So, amend it. Funds for to best equip. That's a statistics and survey just saying that we talked about 48 to 50,000.
I understand the idea and the need and the expectations, but we need to stick with the agenda and the amount proposed there in order to ensure that that doesn't change. So let's be added at another meeting with another agenda. So we'll do it now, but then if we want to the next meetings in January, February, we can have the additional.
So what you're saying, you can amend this.
That'll be fine.
So did you get a quote on the vehicles already? Did you get a transport order?
Well, we purchased several vehicles and we kind of utilized the budgets that we use for the past vehicles, but it just all depends on the vehicle you get. We usually go through state contract, and with the addition of the emergency equipment, it always goes up. So as inflation goes up, things are going to go up. So it's never enough. But at this point in time, we totally understand where we stand, and the amendment will be made later on during Chris's administration. I'm kind of excited to say it's going to be Chris's administration, not mine.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Padilla. Second by Commissioner All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Under item number 4, the Kent County Commission to approve capital outlay for 2019 legislative session in the amount of $250,000 to purchase a new fire engine for the Gallina Fire Department. Chief Duran.
Good afternoon, Commissioner and Chairman.
Good afternoon.
Commissioner, today we're here following the sheriff's lead here and requesting support for capital outlay project for the Gallinas Fire Department. We're requesting supporting to go after $250,000 for the purchase of a new fire engine. I do have with me a couple of members from Gallinas Fire Department, Jasmine and Gary, and I'd like for them to talk a little bit about the need of why we need a new fire engine for that district.
All right.
Good afternoon. I've Jasmine Gallegos, been a member of the Gallinas Fire Department for about 2 years, and I've noticed with our apparatus pumper 12, it's always needing repairs, which our non-existent low budget can no longer afford. Also, it's out of service many times, which is taking away from our calls and our ability to respond and everything like that. Need you to realize that we do respond to the majority of the calls in our community. Asking for your support to purchase this new engine. It's greatly appreciated amongst the entire department and our community. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Gary Gallegos. I've been with the Gallinas Fire Department for 2.5 years. I'm the engineer who drives these trucks. And like she says, our pumper 12 is always in need of repair. Just like about a couple of weeks back, the throttle got stuck in it and it almost caused an accident. And it's over 23 years old and it's lived its life expectancy as a fire truck. We do cover 260 square miles. I mean, and we're the biggest district fire department in the county. And we do need a fire truck as much as possible we can get one. Thank you.
Other questions for them? Need motion to approve the request?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and it's not regarding, I do support this request, but I do have a question for Mr. Duran and our manager. I've been talking to both of you about an ambulance for Pecos. How do I get a project for an ambulance for Pecos? Can we get a truck, is it too late for next month, or can we do that next month? Thank you.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Martinez, second by Commissioner Padilla. All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed, motion carried. Under item number 5, section selection and approval of legislative priorities regarding road projects in San Miguel County, and we consolidated item number 23 with this one. Board for reading it all.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, you should have in front of you a little spreadsheet, and this spreadsheet is intended to show you how we have prioritized our surface roads, asphalt and chip seal covered roads, as a priority for the legislature this year. Well, why is that? That's because we can handle the gravel roads and base course roads ourselves. So we have two separate requests. We're asking the legislature in one request to pay for essentially a contractor to take care of the roads that you have in front of you. We're going to ask you to make choices. And then on the next item, you'll see where we're asking for capital outlay money for equipment to allow us to keep maintaining our dirt and gravel roads. So the spreadsheet that you have in front of you, we went through each commission district and tried to identify the ones in most need. We measured the roads and got some cost estimates based on either an asphalt surface or a chip seal. So there's options. What we would like from you today is to come away with your highest priority for each district and which option, so that we'll know what to put in our request. For example, Gonzales Ranch, to overlay the entire 5 miles would cost almost $2 million. If we submitted a phased approach and we did half now and half perhaps next year, it would be half that amount. If we did not do asphalt surfacing and we did chip seal, you'll see that 5 miles would cost about $700,000, and half of that would be about $352,000. So what we would like from you today is to pick one option from each district to support in our legislative request. And Arnold is here to answer all the technical questions or any other questions you have. And if there are other options that you do not see here, then we can discuss those also.
I have a question. Is this also capital outlay? Is this also capital outlay funding that you're requesting for the roads?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay, so I see like 3 of my district, I believe, Gonzales, and then you want us to pick, you want each commissioner to pick one from their district? Is that what
That's correct.
And what about the road we've been talking about for a long time in East Pecos, that dip that keeps when it rains and people can't get out of Pecos? East Pecos? That's not on here. How do we get projects onto the list?
That's what I was going to cover. If you had other suggestions or ideas within your district, you know, you can give them to us, and we'll get some cost estimates. And if that's your selection for your district, we would definitely consider that, right, Morris?
Absolutely.
So do you want us to add that in your district?
Yeah, are we expected to make a decision today? Or was this for another meeting? We just were presenting this today?
We would like a decision today. I don't think if you can give us, if it's a different priority, if you can give us your priority, then we can take that information, develop a cost estimate, you can approve your desired project today, and I think we can fill in the numbers before we do the legislative request. As long as we have the numbers before we actually fill out the form, I think that's good enough.
Thank you.
Commissioner Padilla.
In my district, I would have to put in that expenses.
Is that a gravel road, Commissioner?
It's a gravel road.
Okay, that's not necessary to put on here, because that's something that we'll do ourselves. This would be for surface road only.
Yeah, we think that the priority should be, you know, for this request, should be roads that are either paved or chip seal that are deteriorated, and if we don't do something to them soon, we're gonna lose these roads. So they're at the point where they're in dire need, and like Mr. Madrid said, any base course, roads that we can take care of ourselves with our resources, we would definitely, consider doing those roads.
So that road in Penn Race, is that qualify?
The one that goes off the state highway to the clubhouse? Yes, that is the county road.
We don't have too many paved roads in that district or in that national road.
So then let me make a suggestion, let's go district by district, starting with Commissioner Miguel, go down this way, and present your project to the Mr. Lopez and Mr. Madrid, and go from there.
I'm fine with what you have here for the Guyanas 827.
That would be a continuation of
Right.
the initiative you already started?
Right, what you guys have started, right?
All right, thank you.
That's what we figured, so you're good with that one?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Morena?
Yes, and I have another question before I make my comments. And there was a project that our manager recommends for CDBG funding. Why would it be on that list and not this list, another road project, a different one?
Because this is a different funding source. This is capital outlay, so it's just a totally different,
Yeah, but, okay, yeah, I understand that. Okay, given that, and you know more about the condition of these other roads and which might be deemed more urgent or an emergency, but I expressed concern over that East Pecos Road, and can you remind me of the number? You know what I'm talking about, the one?
Yes, ma'am, in East Pecos, I know exactly where in that low water crossing
Yeah, that low
that gets
water.
flooded, and they can't cross during flood storms.
Right, I'm considering that to be more of a public health issue because of when it's flooded, which we had a couple of really severe floods when we did get rain last year, and people were stuck on both ends, and I'm concerned that if there's an emergency, there's quite a few families, a number of families, including school children that live on that side that would not have access out of there. So given that, I put that as my priority. It's not on the list, and I don't know how much it would cost. I know it's a major project with design, but...
What we'll do, Commissioner, is we'll include that. We'll get the cost estimates that we need. The language in the legislation is going to be road improvements for such and such a road, and we'll have a dollar amount. Okay. That's basically what we need.
Thank you.
And Arnold's familiar with it, so we'll proceed with that.
Thank you.
All right, in my district, the only one that I see here is storage project. Is that continued from the road that was already paved that's starting to deteriorate?
What it would be is the other portion, the turn, that area over by the trailer park, from the railroad track basically, over and connect, to our boundary right there within the trailer park there. That would be one that would be one consideration, and then resurfacing from where we tied in now. It could be resurfaced with a chip seal or some type of seal, even a seal coat. Possibly we could do both, which would include the S-turn and then do like a seal coat or actually a fog seal on the remaining portion of it, just as an added protection.
The road in my district that really needs a lot of work is the San Agustin Lourdes, but that's not paid for. That wouldn't qualify. The storage project would be my choice.
Okay, and in the Lourdes area, we do have some other funding that's going to take care of the low water crossing, which is in dire need, so we're okay on that one. Okay. And then the rest of it, we could resurface with our material too.
My district would be, have you seen Williams Drive? Does that need to be resurfaced?
Williams, no, it's not in dire need. I mean, it can. I mean, a chip seal on that or a resurface, even a fog seal would definitely help it. But it's not in one of the dire need situations. Panda Rays, that stretch can use an overlay. Yes, sir. Panda Rays?
I have a question. For putting this list together, did you base it based on the need that you saw, since you're out there looking at the roads, you know how the conditions are?
Yes, all these roads are in need.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so, I'll take the Chapel.
Chapel?
All right, is that it? On item number 5?
Yes, I believe so.
All right. Under item number 6, approval of legislative priorities for Public Works Department. Mr. Miguel, Mr. Lopez.
Okay, please, we need a vote on item number 5.
I'm sorry about that?
We need a vote on item number 5.
We need a motion, does it call for a motion? Okay, on the project that we approve? Okay, motion to approve the five projects selected by the commission.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by the commission.
Second.
Second? Second. Oh, second by Commissioner Olivari, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
And we're going to have a monthly report, Mr. Chair.
Oh, okay, that was put in item 23, thank you. Right.
So this is the monthly report for October. We had our new motor grader operator, Juan Diaz. He's been doing training and he's doing really well. Actually, I'm really surprised and proud of how well he's doing on this motor grader. And he's doing extremely well. So he's been out on County Road 48A, out in the eastern part of the county. He also pulled maintenance on County Road C56 in Medina, County Road C60 in Magnolia, in the San Juan area on E41A, pulled maintenance there. That was a special request. Also in the Rivera area, on that one, E41E. John Appeal, over here, who was over in Geronimo area, he says, County Road 820 on Appeal, County Road 830 in San Geronimo, Smoke Shop Road is Ottawa, State 1, County Road 838 in San Ignacio, and also 848 in Montecito. So, the weather has, cooperated with us, and we've been able to do, some pretty decent maintenance this past month. That pretty much covers what we've been doing.
Any questions for Mr. Lopez regarding the
Thanks for all the hard work you gentlemen did.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for all the work. And thank the employees and the staff, everybody over there.
I have a question. It's not regarding roads, but regarding recycling. Yeah, and I've talked to both of you before, and I just wanted to bring it up in the meeting as far as both the other commissioners have concerns and our manager is aware. And I know that the recycling, for those that don't know, we have not had recycling in Pecos for a while. I understand the whole county has not had that, and it seems like it's a bigger issue, even part of a global problem of what do we do with recycling. So I would like to try to see how we can work with you to find a solution and get other people engaged from the county, including our manager and other staff, because I think it's a huge, huge issue, and I'm getting a lot of calls and emails about this.
And you're right, this problem is way above us. It's huge. It's throughout the United States. China, we were exporting a lot of plastic to them, and they stopped getting the plastic from us. So I don't know if you kept up with the news, but there's a huge stockpile of plastics, recycles, and no place to go with it. So, I've done some talking to Capital Scrap, which was buying a lot of our plastics, and actually we're even donating our plastics to them a lot of times. Because what happens when we take in this recycle, it's contaminated with a lot of other household trash as well. So it's a big process to even just do the sorting of it. The way we're set up, we're not set up as when it comes in to sort it out and make it a clear recyclable plastic or a clean recyclable plastic. So, but even then, they're not buying it, they're not taking it in. For the same reason that there's no place to go with them, okay? So people, dropping it off, gets it off of their hands, but where does it go from there? Well, that's a problem. Cardboard, fortunately, there's still a market for it. So we are doing cardboard recycle. That's still available at our facilities. And And when they sort this out and they find a place to go with the plastics, we're forced to take it to the landfill.
What about newspaper? I'm
Glass
sorry.
as well. Paper, they take in only like cardboard, a certain type of paper or cardboard. They do not accept paper.
Even the recycling center here in La Vela, they don't accept paper anymore.
Yeah.
The environmental department can't bring down on them, they can't accept it.
From what I understand,
It's a shame, but not a newspaper going.
Well, thank you for your attention, and I've invited the Pecos Business Association, rather than just ask us to fix it, for their help and their expertise and suggestions, and together so we can try to solve this, because like I said, it's more than just a county problem. I know it's part of a universal global problem, and anyway, thank you for bringing that to our attention and trying to resolve it.
All right. Thank you. Under item number 6, approval of legislative priorities for Public Works Department. Mr. Lopez.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, this one is real simple. I'm just going to list the equipment that we're going to be requesting capital outlay money for. And like we discussed before, we're going to prioritize our surface roads, but we need to come up with replacement plans for our equipment so that we can continue to service the gravel and dirt and base course roads. I know that law enforcement runs into this sometimes if they don't plan, where you have all your vehicles breaking down and wearing out all at the same time. We can't have that. Some of our vehicles are 10, 15, almost 20 years old. So this is going to be the first step towards that. We did some capital outlay money last year. We've been replacing some of our snow removal equipment attachments with that money. We're going to proceed depending on what we get this year. Hopefully there will be some available. What we're requesting this year is a heavy equipment transport trailer. That's to move our graders, loaders, whatever very heavy equipment that we have. That would cost about $90,000. A heavy equipment tractor truck, all that transport, that would be about $150,000. We need to replace one of our solid waste roll-off transport trucks that carries large bins. That would be about $170,000. And then we need to replace our solid waste bins, 30 and 40 yards. And we're requesting $100,000 for those. The total that we're going to request is $510,000. And we ask for your approval.
Motion to approve Public Works Department capital outlay request.
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Commissioner Varela, second by Commissioner Rivera. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Under item number 7, request to approve capital outlay for detention center. Warden Matt Howell.
Chairman, Commissioners, good afternoon. This is a request to approve capital outlay funding in the 2019 legislative session for $70,900 for the detention center to place a polyasbestos flake epoxy seal flooring on our medical cells and living areas. We received $20,000 from last year's legislative committee to do our kitchen. And this will be a continuation to get all these floorings that are currently concrete with peat on them to have a nice flooring seal, which is better for sanitation, cleanliness, and to really, as this facility ages, to keep on that upkeep of the facility. Sorry to urge you.
Question concerned by the warden. The motion to approve is capital. Second. Sorry, who made the motion? Motion made by Commissioner Martinez, second by Commissioner Padilla. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Under item 11, resignation of probate judge. Recognize the resignation of Mr. Charlie Rotero as probate judge. Action requested by the commission, recognition of resignation. Need a motion to approve the resignation of probate judge. So moved by Commissioner Padilla. Second by Commissioner Martinez. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Under item number 9, selection process for appointment of probate judge. The San Miguel County Commission will select a committee to interview and present back to the commission 3 finalists for the commission's appointment to replace the San Miguel County probate judge. Each commissioner will appoint an individual to the committee. For your information, we have 9 applicants for the position of probate judge. What we are going to do, we're going to sign our attorney, David Romero, HR person, HR supervisor, Eileen Cedillo, as well as an appointee from each member of the commission to the committee. We would like to have this done possibly by next week. We would call Mrs. Cedillo, give her the name so they can start the process, and hopefully we can interview the final 3 applicants in the December meeting and make a decision on our new probate judge at that time. Is that satisfactory with everybody? Sound good? All right? Right, that was for information purposes only, I believe. And now, Commissioner Varela, what we did on the probate judge, we accepted probate judge Charlene Otero's resignation. There are 9 applicants for probate judge, and what we are going to do is we are going to form a committee, and each commissioner will be allowed to appoint a member, whoever you choose. The committee, it'll be our counselor, David Romero, it'll be Eileen Cedillo from the HR department, the HR supervisor, and as well as 5 committee members that we appoint. So by next week, if you could just let Mr. Cedillo know who your selection is, and they'll start the interview process. They'll select and pick the top 3, and they will interview the top 3, make a decision in our meeting. All right?
The individual has to be from our area, from our district?
Not necessarily,
No?
whoever you choose.
As long as they're a San Miguel
Yes.
County resident, right?
Could we choose ourselves? Not that I want to. Do we need to pick another individual other than ourselves? I mean, or could it be a commissioner?
It's a good question, I hadn't thought of that, being that we're going to make a decision anyway. If you choose.
We will find someone.
Yeah, if not, is there a problem, do you think, with selecting ourselves?
To be on the committee?
Yes.
I think it's a concern I have. Normally, we do always want a member of the commission on some of the initial committees sort of to represent the commission. But I think in this particular case, it might be cleaner if there were no commissioners, that all the commissioners are going to be able to vote when it comes up to the commission and participate in that way. You have the option, but I think it's cleaner if you just vote one time, and that's when the recommendations come to you.
Thank you, that makes sense. Appreciate
We
that.
do have, out of the 9 participant applicants, we have an impressive list of candidates.
Okay.
Okay, under item number 10, award of lodger's tax fund, RFP 2018-2019-2, Mr. Tapoya.
Good afternoon. The Lodgers Tax Advisory Board reviewed proposals that were received for marketing and advertising in response to RFP number 2018-2019, number 2, and they're recommending award of lodgers tax funds as follows. The Pecos Business Association, $11,057.75. Las Vegas First, $8,000. Las Vegas San Miguel Chamber of Commerce Main Street, $2,000. And the Rough Rider Motorcycle Rally, $5,400. So what we're asking is the Board of County Commissioners to ratify and approve the award of lodgers tax funds as recommended by the Lodgers Tax Advisory Board, so that we can then prepare the proper lodgers tax funding agreement for signature by the county manager and the county attorney, and then obtain signatures from the different entities.
Any questions, Commissioner Tapoya? In favor of the award to lodgers tax?
I make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Commissioner Padilla, second by Commissioner Varela.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Under item number 11.
Thank you.
Building lease between San Miguel County and Oldwood LLC. Mr. Tafoya.
At its county commission meeting on August 14th, 2018, the Board of County Commissioners approved and adopted ordinance number SMC-08-14-18, which ordinance terminated the sublease by and between the Economic Development Corporation, known as EDC, and Oldwood LLC. It also terminated the primary lease by-in between the Board of County Commissioners of San Miguel County and the Las Vegas San Miguel County Economic Development Corporation, also known as EDC. Those leases addressed the use of a 10,000 square foot building that is owned by the county and is presently occupied by Oldwood LLC. Ordinance number SMC-08-14-18 is now in effect. Oldwood LLC is now occupying a county-owned building without a valid lease in place. And at the time that this memorandum was written, October 31st, Oldwood had not submitted a lease rent payment to the county in spite of a request by the county to do so. The 10,000 square foot building was constructed with USDA grant funds received by the county back in 2008. And therefore, the USDA has a property interest in the building. Any lease agreement between the county and the tenant that occupies the building must be reviewed by the USDA to ensure all applicable USDA federal requirements are properly addressed. So USDA has reviewed the building lease agreement, made suggested revisions so as to comply with the appropriate USDA federal requirements. The county made the revisions and the building lease agreement is ready for approval. The building lease agreement mirrors the previous sublease between EDC and the Oldwood LLC, with the exception of the USDA required language. And on your draft that you have, or on the copy that you have, that USDA required language is in italics so that you know what it is. We provided, as we've worked on the lease agreement with USDA, we provided, of course, copies, drafts to USDA for their review and comment. We also provided copies, the most recent being copies to Oldwood. The most recent copy, which is the one we have today, was sent to Oldwood on October 23rd for review and comment. What we're asking for today is for the Board of County Commissioners to review the lease agreement and also to approve the lease agreement so that we can then submit it to Oldwood for their signature.
All right. Any comments, questions? Commissioner Varela?
Yes, Mr. Tafoya, can you please boil it down to me, because there's a lot of reading to do right here. The bottom line, how much are they paying now, and what would their rent, would this be a rent increase with this new language?
Under the old lease, they were paying, well, according to the lease, the rent amount, the base rent amount was $750 per month. The lease then was reduced based on jobs created per year. There was some discussion with USDA in regard to that because USDA in their September 13th, 2018 letter to the county indicated that it's the policy of USDA that the minimum acceptable rent payment will be an amount that is no less than the straight line depreciation as acceptable by IRS and in accordance with general acceptable accounting principles. And this is otherwise known as fair market value rent, which should be based upon an appraisal conducted on the RBAG. It was an RBAG grant, Rural Business Enterprise Grant funded building. So there was a little bit of discussion at the USDA on that in regard to whether we need a fair market value appraisal or not. The second issue in regard to rent, so no, the rent hasn't changed, to answer your question. The second issue in regard to rent is the New Mexico State Board of Finance. Mr. Old has indicated that he does, we base this lease on a 4-month period, 4-month term. And he indicates that we had a 5-year lease with a 5-year extension, and that's correct. But the New Mexico State Board of Finance requires there's going to be a lease for 5 years or longer, requires that the State Board of Finance approve the lease agreement and that the rent be based on a fair market value appraisal. That was not done in the first time. So that is why we prepared this lease on a 4-year term rather than a 5-year term. I indicated to the county manager this morning that yes, we can change the lease term to a 5-year period. We can do that. It's based on the wishes of the Board of County Commissioners. We just put it together for you. But if we do that, then we're going to have to take it to the Board of Finance for approval. Then we can do that as well. The second thing that concern is the termination. There's a termination clause in our agreement, proposed agreement, that indicates that the county may terminate the agreement at its discretion upon 60 days written notice to the leasee. It also says the leasee may terminate this agreement at its discretion upon 60 days written notice to the county. USDA insisted on a 60-day written notice. The lease agreement, the original lease agreement had a termination clause that says EDC at its discretion may terminate this agreement under its authority pursuant to the adoption of the county ordinance at that time. And there was nothing in there that indicated that Old Wood could terminate the agreement as well, and there was not a time frame. So USDA said you need to do both, indicate at least a 60-day notice and then allow the tenant or the leasee to also terminate the agreement as well. So that's part of the new language, although if you look at the agreement, it's not in italics. I didn't notice that till just now, but anyway. The concern also is, and we've been working on this agreement for a while, the concern is that we have a tenant in not one but 2 county buildings without a lease agreement, without a lease rent payment in place, and that poses a liability issue on the county if a vendor, an employee, a vendor of the tenant, an employee of the tenant, a customer should get hurt. And so it is imperative that a building lease agreement get put in place. These things are always subject to revision or by either party at any times. It's not held in stone, but county staff needs to take appropriate steps to present something in place that protects the county, and that's what we're doing here. If this lease is not acceptable to the Board of County Commissioners, then we can revise it as appropriate. But initially, USDA indicated, well, you know, you have a lease agreement that doesn't meet our requirements, and so we've incorporated that. We also removed some of the things that required Old Wood to provide provide certain jobs, create certain jobs within certain time periods, and that was in the previous lease. And we did that at the direction of USDA. So those, for example, year one, Old Wood needed to create 4 additional full-time employees. Year 2, create 2 additional full-time employees. Year 3, create 2 additional full-time employees. So by year 3, the base jobs would be 18. By year 4, the base jobs would be 20, and by year 5, the total jobs would be 22. We took all of that out, so there is no job requirement in the lease for Old Wood to agree to or comply with. I think that's really about all the changes. Other than that, the language is the same as the existing or the previous lease.
Commissioner Barrera?
Yeah, one more question. Has the county met with Old Wood to discuss the terms of this lease, and is it acceptable to them?
We met once, and then we sent the lease to them on October 23rd. We asked them to review it, and we asked them to let us know when they would like to meet with us to review the lease, and they have not indicated when they would like to meet with us to review the lease, so it's been, I don't know, about 2 weeks or 3 weeks already. The concerns that they have is first of all, the legality of the ordinance that terminated the lease, the right to cancel for no reason, the fair market value. They don't seem to agree with the requirement of a fair market value appraisal. Fair market value is essentially that, what is fair. The initial lease amount of $750 was a number that someone came up with, and a fair market value appraisal is done by an independent contractor, an appraiser, and there's a concern that by Old Wood that the fair market value might increase their rent by X amount of dollars, and we don't know that because, we don't know that. We don't have a fair market value appraisal.
Thank you. Did we make, correct me if I'm wrong, about 2 months ago, this board here make a recommendation that we work with Old Wood and that the rate, even with the fair market value increase, that it wouldn't affect, that we would just stick with the rent they were paying and that they wouldn't be priced out? Or
well, we're sticking with the regular.
You're sticking with the original rent?
Yes.
Yeah, my only thing I would say is that I would urge you the county to meet with Old Wood to make sure that they're okay with the terms of this agreement.
Yes, and we asked them that via letter back in October, and they still haven't advised us when they're willing or ready to meet with us.
I'd like to have that happen before it's brought to us for approval, because I don't want to approve something that hasn't gone to them, so that's...
Mr. Chairman, what I would recommend, this is just my recommendation to the commission, is that we approve what we have on the table now, because the fact is that they're working without a lease agreement, and that could bound the county to liability in the long run and in the short run. And without any kind of a lease agreement, the county could be the one answering for any lawsuits or any coming out of the workforce. So what my recommendation would be is to go ahead and approve the recommendation of staff to approve the lease as it stands, and then we can work on it if we have to later on. I mean, it's not like set in stone, but we could at least improve it if we can, later on.
But I would, this is just my recommendation. I think we should have a lease in place.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
We should have a lease in place and the sooner the better. That's my recommendation.
So what has changed? What language has changed from the contract with the EDC and the contract with us? Did they have a termination clause as well with EDC?
Yes.
So
And that termination clause required the lease, it also provided that the county could terminate the lease as well, but it had to be by ordinance, and that's what the ordinance was adopted at the August meeting. So the difference now would be that the building is now underneath the, I don't know, control, if you will, of the county, and the county is the landlord rather than EDC, and Oldwood or whoever the tenant is, well, the tenant. But all the terms are, with the exception of the job requirement, paragraphs in there, all the terms are the same as the previous lease.
And by us approving this lease today, that would free the county of any liability that would happen?
I'm not sure. Okay, so what was the question again?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I received an email from David Old, and he does have concerns with the existing lease. He sent this around 5:05. When was it sent? This was sent yesterday, November 12th, and he has concerns with the current lease agreement. So my question is, if we wait, what are the legal ramifications if we don't have a lease in place? And the other question is, Mr. Tofoya, you did try to reach out to him to set up the meeting. He did indicate he was out of town, though.
Yes.
So then the question is, what are the legal ramifications if we table this item and meet with him first? Mr.
In dealing with this lease, I did not propose the lease, or I wasn't involved in negotiations of the lease, although it did come before my desk and I did give legal approval in terms of appropriateness. And so I haven't been part of the process between both parties as well as Mr. Tofoya has. But my general sense is, like any contract that we conduct with another party or that we have with your landlord, is that both parties have to have some fundamental agreement as to the terms, and if they cannot come up with an agreement, both parties, as to the terms, then the county or Oldwood has to look at a different position, either in relocating elsewhere or the county opening up the process. But I don't like that approach. I would rather just try to see, there are some, from what I understand, some roadblocks in terms of, say, fair market value or termination. And I just would rather see the county and Oldwood sit down and try to hammer something out, rather than approving a lease agreement today that I know that Oldwood has concerns with.
Yeah, Commissioner.
I agree with council here, because even if we approve it today, and David Olds doesn't sign it, that doesn't relieve us of any possibility. There's still no signed lease. And the legal ramifications or legality of the ordinance, I understand that because the motion was clear that the ordinance to terminate the lease was conditional on an agreement by Oldwood and the county for a new lease. So it sounds to me like we're kind of putting the cart before the horse here, because the motion that Commissioner Varela made for that ordinance to terminate the lease was conditional on an agreement between Oldwood and the county on the new lease. So I I would like to take council's recommendation on this. We try to sit down and work on a lease that's agreeable for both sides, and then bring it before the commission. Because even if we pass this today, it doesn't relieve us of any liability if the other party is not signing it.
I think that, and agree on that. We don't want you to fail. We don't want to fail. The motion is,
I'll move to table and give direction to council and Alex to sit down with Oldwood and knock out a lease that's agreeable by both sides, and then bring it back before the commission.
motion by Commissioner Levari to table this meeting.
I'd like to amend that a little bit to include the council.
I did.
You did? Okay. Second?
All right, second, Commissioner Varela. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Item number 12, supermarket rents and utilities allowed for San Miguel County. Ms. Valdez, I think we have from San Miguel County Housing Authority.
Chair of Commissioners, my name is Betty Valdez. I'm the Acting Director for the San Miguel Housing Authority. I am here for approval tonight for an administrative function for fair market rents and utility allowances for the San Miguel Section 8 Housing Authority, Housing Authority program. The fair market rents and utility allowances for the San Miguel Housing Program for Section 8 did go up for 2019. But HUD does require board approval each year for our payments. So I'm here asking for approval. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions concerns from Ms. Valdez, from the commission?
Just want to thank her for all her hard work. We're like in ratings, we're like back in good standing, right?
Yes, we are.
Thank you for all your hard work.
You're welcome.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Padilla.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Levari. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Have a safe
Thank
drive
you,
back.
Ms. Valdez. Under item number 13, resolution number 11-13-18-EL at Pueblo Fire. Chief Duran. Mr. Tafoy, I'm sorry.
At its July 2018 meeting, the Board of County Commissioners approved a conditional use permit application CU-20250 and also granted approval of a property lease agreement subject to lease agreement approval by the State Board of Finance and completion of a fair market value appraisal. The fair market value appraisal has been completed and received, and so there's a couple of things that need to happen. First of all, the appraisal needs to be reviewed by the Property Tax Division of the state. So the appraisal has been sent to the Property Tax Division for their review and approval. The second thing that needs to happen is the lease agreement, along with a copy of the fair market value appraisal with comments from the Property Tax Bureau, needs to be submitted to the New Mexico State Board of Finance for their review and approval. And the State Board of Finance requires that the lease agreement be adopted by the Board of County Commissioners under a resolution. And then the resolution and the lease agreement get submitted to the Board of Finance for their review and hopefully their approval. So that's what we're asking the Board of County Commissioners to do today, is to adopt the resolution number 11-13-18- El Pueblo Fire. And what that resolution does is it authorizes the property lease agreement and then delegates authority to the county manager to revise the property lease agreement as may be required by the New Mexico State Board of Finance. The fair market value appraisal came up with an amount of $600 per month for the use of 8,516 square feet of property located at the Pueblo Volunteer Fire Department for a telecommunications tower. We sent the lease agreement to Vertical Bridge Development LLC for their review and comment, and they're awaiting the action by the Board of County Commissioners and the action by the State Board of Finance so they can proceed with the project. They're acceptable to the $600 a month appraisal. So that's what we're asking the County Commissioners.
Motion on 11-13-18.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Padilla.
Second?
Motion by Commissioner Padilla, second by Commissioner Padilla. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Under item number 14, addendum to agreement GL Environmental Incorporated. Commissioner Napoya.
Yes, the county has an agreement with GL Environmental, and what they do is they provide engineering and consulting services. Actually, what it is technical review of any applications that the county would receive for conditional use permits for oil and gas exploration and drilling. We issued a request for proposals for these services a couple of years ago. The oil and gas ordinance requires technical review of any applications that the county receives for oil and gas drilling. There's a fee built into the ordinance that requires any applicant to pay and submit and pay a technical review fee that the county uses to pay for these services. Of course, we haven't had any applications for oil and gas drilling, so we haven't had to use GL Environmental, but we're asking the Board of County Commissioners to extend this agreement for a third year.
Any questions from any of the commissioners? No? From Mr. Chichua?
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Ulivari, second from Commissioner Padilla. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Item number 15, request approval from San Miguel County Board of Commissioners to accept the FEMA PDMC PL 06 NM 2017-04 Hazardous Mitigation Plan Update Grant from New Mexico Department of Homeland Security Emergency Management.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. The Office of Emergency Management applied for a pre-disaster Homeland Security Mitigation Grant in August of 2017 and was recently awarded $55,000 to update our current FEMA-approved multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan, which is due to be updated by December of 2019. At this time, we request approval from the San Miguel County Board of Commissioners to accept the FEMA-PDMC-PL-06-NM-2017-04 Hazard Mitigation Plan Update Grant from the New Mexico Department of Homeland Security Emergency Management with a federal share of $41,250 and a local share of $13,750.
Any questions from commissioners for Mr. Maestas?
Congratulations on the grant.
Motion to approve? Motion?
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Martinez, second by Commissioner Padilla. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Maestas. Item number 16, San Miguel County Manager's recommendation for approval of the governing holidays for the calendar year 2019. Presenter Eileen Cedillo, Human Resource Supervisor.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
In your packet, you have resolution number SMC-Res 111318, and this is for the governing holidays for the 2019 calendar year. The San Miguel County Personnel Policy and Procedures assures employees of 11 1/2 holidays per year. So this identifies all our holidays, so we can send notice to our employees. At this time, I'm asking for your approval of SMC-RES-11-13-2018.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner
Question.
Martinez.
Question.
Excuse me, question by Commissioner
Yeah, I
Padilla.
was just going to ask Eileen if, is there any changes on the holidays at all?
No, we basically kept the holidays the same when we changed the personnel policies in June, and we kept them at 11 1/2 days. We were looking at 12, but we kept it the same as it was in the prior personnel policy. So all of the holidays remained the same.
Okay.
And we also follow the holidays that are identified as the federal holidays. That's what we recognize as well.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
No, motion?
We have a motion from Commissioner Martinez.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Padilla. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Item number 17, personnel actions or changes for the month of October. Ms. Cedillo?
So in your packet, you have all of the personnel actions that have taken place during the month of October. At this time, I'm going to ask your approval and ratification of these personnel actions.
Any questions from Ms. Cedillo?
Questions?
Yes, Commissioner Martinez?
No questions?
No questions? Okay. Motion?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Padilla, second by Commissioner Martinez. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. Okay, number 18.
Can I just apprise you on a current situation as well?
Sure, Ms. Cedillo.
So back on October 4th, I was notified by an AFSCME representative about our union negotiation process. And basically Mr. Sam Chavez brought me a letter letting me know that they had received a letter of disclaimer of interest, and that the union members had submitted a letter asking to have a disclaimer of interest with the union. So there's a process that takes place, and official action was taken last Monday, November the 5th, with the Public Employee Labor Relations Board. And so the official action of them acknowledging that disclaimer of interest took place in that meeting last Monday. So just to bring you up to speed as to what's going on with the union. So as of last Monday, we are decertified with the union. So our detention center and our sheriff's office are no longer being represented by AFSCME.
Thank you.
May I have a question now?
Yes.
Ms. Cedillo, does that have to do with the resignation of 2 individuals on that list from the sheriff's office, or was that for a different reason?
No, those were different reasons. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so where are we at?
Number 18.
Number 18, under number 18, Americans with Disabilities Act ACA Transition Plan.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, you've already taken some action on this plan. We were informed, just as a refresher, by the Federal Highway Administration that in order to further receive federal funds, we have to complete an Americans with Disabilities Act transition plan. Much like 2 years ago, they mandated we have to submit a Title VI non-discrimination policy. The transition plan is intended to demonstrate not necessarily that we're in full compliance with all the ADA requirements, but that we have a plan to address them all within a reasonable amount of time. That takes a few steps, which I'll go over real briefly. The first one you've already taken. At a prior meeting, you appointed Ms. Eileen Cedillo, the ADA coordinator. Her responsibility is to address any complaints or issues that are referred to the county, and there's a process for that. The other one is the next item on the agenda, and that's to ratify an Americans with Disabilities Act policy. Those are two very important pieces of the transition plan. The actual work that needs to be done is we have to do an assessment of all of our buildings. Since we don't have downtown streets with crosswalks and signals and things like that, our main concern is pedestrian accessibility. The sidewalks, the walkways, the bathrooms, the counters, all of those things. And it's as detailed as measuring the height of the toilet, the length of the grab bars, the width of the doors. That door may look like it's compliant, but you actually have to measure how much strength it takes to pull a door open or push it open. It's that detailed. So we have a team of department heads that are going to work on individual buildings. There's a very specific binder of instructions. We have to document our process with pictures, measurements. We're going to be using specialized tools like slope levels to measure the slope of the ramps, to measure the pull on the doors, all of those things. It's a very, very detailed process. It's kind of like we're guilty until we prove ourselves innocent. That's essentially what it amounts to. But our federal funds are on the line, so we have to do it. The steps that we have to do, we have to assess all our buildings and all our pedestrian access areas. We have to identify where we're not in compliance. And it's kind of a self-reporting. Then, after we have those items identified, we have to prioritize which ones we're going to address first. In some cases, it's not expensive at all. We have an area that I found at one of our buildings where our ADA parking space is on a sloped area, where all we have to do is restripe it to be on a flat area right in front of the building. That's simple. We have other ones where we may have an entire bathroom that needs remodeling. That would be more expensive. Those are the things that we need to identify and prioritize. After we prioritize them, we have to identify the funding. We're already working with Melinda on working towards that so that we're not doing everything at the last minute. We're going to try and identify some of this funding that we need for compliance because nobody's in full compliance and we aren't either. So that we can show that we're making progress towards becoming compliant. Once we have some funding in place, then we can schedule and address either how we're going to take care of these issues or hire somebody to take care of it. This process that we're going through costs Los Alamos County $110,000 for an architect to do. We're not going to pay that. We're going to do it ourselves, but we're going to be smart, and we're going to have an engineer or an architect review our work. So it's going to take some of our time, but it'll save the county a lot of money in the long run, and we will still be in compliance. So we're talking about months, not weeks, to complete the plan itself. To have the plan in place, probably less than a couple of months. Once we have the plan in place and we follow the milestones that we set in time, then we'll be okay. As long as we allot a reasonable amount of money to remediate where we're not in compliance, we'll be okay. We just have to show we have a plan, we're going to fund it, we have our priorities straight. That's what the transition plan is all about. It's a transition to compliance. So with that, and if you have any more specific questions, I can show you all the binders. We can sit down and explain it. It's pretty technical, and It's kind of boring and kind of scary. But with that, I'll conclude item 18. And that's the reason for item number 19, Resolution 11-13-18-ADA. I request that you approve the policy, and this should probably be an annual event. We request that you approve this policy today. Thank you.
Motion to approve resolution 11-13-18-88.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by
Second.
Commissioner Barcela, second by Commissioner Padilla. All in favor?
Oh, no.
Motion carried. Item number 20, addendum 1 to mobile maintenance agreement, extending the mobile maintenance agreement by the in between San Miguel County and MJM, service and repair. Chief Duran.
Thank you. The next two items are very similar, just identifying two different vendors. The county currently has a mobile maintenance agreement with a couple of vendors to provide on-site maintenance and repairs for our fire apparatus. This has worked out great for us. It's opposed to driving a fire truck to Albuquerque for repairs. Now we have a couple of mechanics that will actually come on site and do the repairs on site. So that eliminates taking a fire truck out of service. For in the past for a week or 2 weeks. Now they're on call. We can call these services and they'll be here within a day and do repairs. Unless parts are needed to be ordered, then it does delay it a little bit, but this has worked out really well for us. The current agreement has the option for extending the agreement on an annual basis for up to 4 years. This will be the first year of asking to extend this agreement. So I did reach out to both vendors, and they both wish to extend their agreement. So I'm asking for an addendum to extend the agreement for 1 year on the first year option.
All right, need a motion to approve the agreement with MJ Services and Repair.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Martinez.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Varela. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Under item 21, addendum to mobile maintenance agreement, extending the mobile maintenance agreement between San Miguel County and New Mexico Apparatus LLC.
And this is the identical agreement. It's just with a different vendor. Both of them provide service to the county fire departments for mobile maintenance and repairs.
Motion to approve? Motion to approve by Commissioner Martinez. Second. Second by Commissioner Padilla. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Under item number 22, resolution number 10-19-18-RA01, addition to Scenic View Road and newly named private road that will be added to the official E911 road list of San Miguel County.
Chairman, Commissioners, Dr. Martinez. During a routine audit of San Miguel County addressing data, it was discovered that there are 4 address structures on a single road located off Box Canyon Road, south of Las Vegas. Per San Miguel County Ordinance, Section 4.1-C, proposed to San Miguel Board of County Commissioners, please review it and take appropriate action on road naming for any appropriate road or any private road that provides access to 3 or more buildings and requires a name in order to promote the health, safety, and welfare of the public. The name Scenic View Road has been determined to be acceptable by rural addressing staff per San Miguel County Ordinance, and because this is an existing situation, the $100 fee has been waived. At this time, we're requesting approval of road name Scenic View Road.
All right. Motion to approve? Motion approved by Commissioner Martinez. Second by Commissioner Olivaria. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Item 23, Public Works Division report for the month of October. No, wait, we did that one. Under item number 24, Bulletproof Partnership 2018 Award, Chief Cole.
Commissioner Dr. Martinez, I'm just requesting permission to receive and accept this awardment for Bulletproof Vest for the next administration. I'm sure Chris will need it. And here to entertain any questions.
Motion to approve item number 24, Bulletproof Vest.
So moved, Mr.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Padilla. Second.
Thank you.
Second by Commissioner Olivaria. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Moving on to Board of Finance meeting.
Well, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, Ms. Bustamante indicated she would not be able to make today's meeting. They're in the process of collecting the first half of property taxes, so I told her I'd read these. There were 2 transfers during the month of October for payroll, one being on October 11th and the other being on October 25th. There was a transfer of $2,159.50 from the general fund to the fire funds as we received monies from the New Mexico Energy and Minerals and Natural Resources as a reimbursement for some wildland fires. There was a transfer of $238,786.40 from the general fund to the fire funds. That is the second quarterly distribution of the state allotment funds. And then finally, there was a transfer of $67,447.96 from our housing account that we have here at San Miguel County to Bernalillo County for payments that were going to be dispersed in November.
Only under item number 26, indigent burial claims.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, we had one claim that we processed to Avista Cremation and Burial in the amount of $600. We're seeking your ratification.
Move to ratify.
Move to ratify by Commissioner Olivari. Second by Commissioner Martinez. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Under item 27, budget report for the period of July 1st, 2018 to September 2018.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, in front of you, I have a report from our Tyler system. It's a budget report for the first quarter of the fiscal year. It's for informational purposes only. Welcome.
Informational purposes only. Journal entry number 29. 28.
28.
Item 28, review report for the month of September 2018.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, this report is also run off of our system. This one was run for the month of September 2018, and it shows all receipts processed through the Treasurer's Office.
We'll pay the bill. Under item 29, journal entry report for the month of September 2018.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I have a journal entry report that's run off of our system for all transactions that were posted to the system from September 1st to September 30th, regardless of the posting date, for your review.
Under item 30, accounts payable report for period of September 25th, 2018 to October 29th, 2018 in the housing payment register for the month of September 2018.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I have a report off of our Tyler system of the payments made during the time frame indicated, and also a HAP payment register that Bernalillo County submits to me on a monthly basis reflecting payments made on behalf of us.
Motion to approve. Approved by Commissioner Olivari.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Padilla, in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Under item 31, cash balance report for the month of September 2018.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, you'll find a 3-page report that reports all the cash balances as of the end of September 30th for informational purposes only.
Under item number 32, resolution number 2018-11-13-F3.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I have a budget adjustment resolution, and I'll go over each item that's being amended. In the general fund, we will continue to receive reimbursements for damaged properties for a total amount expected to be $2,200.28. The revenue and expenditure budget will need to be increased to account for these, as these were unbudgeted costs. For the next budgeted item, in August, you had approved a juvenile justice grant. We received notice that the grant amount is actually increased from $30,000 to $34,680, and our match is increased from $12,000 to $13,872. A budget adjustment is being made to account for these increases, and the additional transfer will come from the general fund. What is that? The next adjustment, we got notice from the State Fire Marshal's Office through the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission that the fiscal year 2019 distributions for the state allotments will be decreasing slightly, an overall decrease of $4,423 amongst all of our fire districts in the administration budget, and so I'm making that adjustment request. Also, the county accounts for fire excise grocery taxes and various fire funds. In the new local government budget system, these taxes are accounted for in Fund 22000. Since each district accounts for a combination of state allotment, fire excise gross receipt taxes, EM&RD reimbursements, grants, etc., in one fund but different cost centers for each department, it's impossible to separate the cash for the 2,900 and the 2,200 in the LGBMS system without creating an additional fund for each district. In working through this with our budget analyst at DFA, we decided to continue to report the fire excise in 2200, but to transfer the funds to 2900 and report the activity of all fire departments in the 2900 account in the LGBMS system. This particular transfer had already been documented in the final budget process with DFA, but is being documented in this resolution. Also, the county received 4 largest tax proposals. And this budget adjustment is to increase our budget for those 4 new awards. Also, the county accounts for, this is kind of similar with the fire funds, the county accounts for correction fees in our internal fund 703, but in the DFA budget system, these are accounted for in Fund 20100, while the remainder of Fund 703 is reported in 22600. A transfer will be made to the LGBMS system to transfer the amount budgeted for the correction fees from 20100 to 22600. This will allow DFA to monitor what is received in correction fees and have the correction fee transferred to the detention fund for expenditure. No change will need to be made in our financial system, as it is all being accounted for in Fund 703. On the county internal recap document, which is part of this resolution, it is documented as an in and an out for documentation purposes. And finally, the Sheriff's Office received a notice of a grant award in the amount of $1,875 from the Bureau of Justice Assistance, and this is being budgeted in Fund 701.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Olivari.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Moreno. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. And item number 33, Resolution 2018-11-13 that have you authorized to modify the use of Fund 206.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner, Fund 206 is entitled Disaster Projects, and Fund 206 was last used in fiscal year 13-14 through 15-16 to account for a disaster project that was funded by the state. I'm recommending that this fund be used to account for any natural or man-made disaster, regardless if the cost will or will not be reimbursable from the state or the federal government. Whereas in the event of a state or federal disaster, the county will create a specific fund to account for the specific project, but may also be able to use these funds toward any matching requirements that it may apply for those projects. And whereas during a special meeting held on July 30th, 2018, the Commission approved a budget of $250,000 to be used for potential flood disasters with roads, and I would like to include any other type of natural disaster or man-made disaster to be a warranted expense against this fund.
Motion to approve Resolution 2018-11-13 that have you. Motion to approve by Commissioner Varela.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Olivari. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item 34, certification of capital asset inventory for FY 17 and 18.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, the Audit Act requires agencies to conduct an annual physical inventory of chattels and equipment on the inventory list at the end of each fiscal year in accordance with the requirements of Section 12-6-10 of the New Mexico statutes annotated. And whereas the agency shall certify the correctness of the inventory after the physical inventory, and where each department has conducted a physical inventory of their respective departments and have certified to the accuracy of the report, and whereas the asset report provided herein is being certified with the exception of the highlighted items.
Item for informational purposes only, under item 35, resolution 2018-11-13-F1. Ms. Gonzalez.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, this resolution is to adopt a formal retention policy. The State Record Center and Archives had repealed the record retention and disposition schedules that were once set through the New Mexico Administrative Code that was applicable to local governments. And upon recommendation, the county should adopt the repealed record retention and disposition schedules for financial information and determine at a future time whether to create or adopt customized schedules relevant to San Miguel County. And the record retention and disposition schedule is being made part of this resolution.
Motion to approve resolution 2018-11-13-F1. Motion to approve by Commissioner Lee.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Padilla. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item on the agenda is adjournment.
Second.
Adjourned by Commissioner Levarie, second by Commissioner Padilla. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Meeting is adjourned.